Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 39 of FPL BlackBox. If you caught the start of the YouTube video, which was me waving my thumbs, then that is a pretty good kind of... well, that's what's been going on behind the scenes, basically. Mark sent me a nice little message saying how unruffled he was before we started, and here we are with a very ruffled Mark and a very calm Mr. Luke.
That was absolute chaos, wasn't it? Absolute chaos. And I think we had some difficulties there. I think we had the video playing, the music. Adding a guest, as it turned out, is quite stressful. Good job it's worth it, because we've got Luke tonight, haven't we? Luke, welcome to the show. Yeah, it'll be worth it.
I wish I hadn't bothered, I'll be honest.
That's a wife for every week, Luke.
No, I'm joking. No, thanks for having me on, guys. No, favourite time of the season for me, the bit before it all starts, tinkering daily. I don't know why I like it so much, but I really do.
Yeah, this is the fun part, right?
Exactly.
Before it all starts, before the agony begins.
2 weeks before is kind of, and it feels acceptable to be tinkering now, whereas like a month ago I was doing it and it just felt pointless. But now it's like these guys could actually be in my team.
Well, we'll see. Tonight, the idea of tonight is we're going to try and smash the template. That might be overplaying it a bit because Luke is already backtracking before we went on air. But yeah, I think tonight we've been looking at the Twitter template over the coming weeks, and as you put in some groundwork, haven't you? You've done about 3 hours of research into this. I'm absolutely shocked.
Do you know what? It was way more work than I thought it was going to be. I thought I could just take some Twitter teams, put them into a spreadsheet, and work out what the Twitter template was. Turns out putting in 100 teams was just a lot more work than I thought it was. It took me about 3.5 hours last night.
Yeah,
but yeah, got a Twitter template.
Yeah, we have.
Someone guessed it immediately. So
after all that, so you could have just put it together in 5 minutes, then basically.
Exactly.
You could have just gone. What do you reckon the Twitter template is, and that's it. But anyway, you've done the research, so there is research behind it. So we'll be looking at the template team as per Twitter tonight in the show, and then we'll be looking at differentials by position to try and see what differentials we can get into to break that up. And we might even have time to pick our own differential team on the show. We'll look at our lineups, of course, as they stand, but there's so much in flux at the moment, so many caveats with the Kane situation, the Grealish situation, Lukaku today. I don't know where we stand on things. So drafts are drafts, they're not team reveals, right, Az?
Absolutely. A few people saying my volume's quite low, Mark. I don't know if you can do anything about that. My settings are all right this time around.
I think they're saying that you're just really loud, Mark, and us two are quite quiet, but...
there's nothing I can do about that, I'm afraid, I don't think.
Background muffle.
Yeah, the background noise is on Luke's mic. I don't know what we do about that, really. On the podcast, we can eliminate that in the record, but there's not a lot I can do in the stream.
Blame Luke.
Yeah, I think it is anyway. I think it is bizarre, but I think we'll just have to press on though.
There's nothing I could do my end. All my settings are definitely right. So
I'm sorry. I don't even know what it is. I'm dead silent in this room. I can't hear anything.
No. I don't know what it's
when you're not talking.
Yeah, can you mute your mic? See if that helps. Yeah, see, it's definitely Luke. The sound has just gone. Yeah.
I'll just watch, guys. You crack on.
I don't know. It's that Yeti microphone, isn't it? Unbelievable. Right. Let's get down to business. So the first thing I want to talk about is VAR, right? Because I don't know how seriously we should take this. I don't know how much this impacts us, but 3 things. They talked about offsides today. They're gonna get rid of the marginal offsides, whatever that means. Mm-hmm. We don't know to what extent. And also there was going to be, the flags for offsides as well, which won't affect us or shouldn't do this. The third point, though, isn't it? The principles for decision making around what challenges by players should constitute fouls. And then Mike Riley of PGMOL, which is the officials governing body, board, whatever you like to call it, at the Premier League, has come out with a quote which effectively says that they're going to look much more closely at what constitutes a foul in terms of contact on players. And the upshot of that is we're going to get, surely, fewer penalties. But what do we think about this? This is the last 24 hours.
You sent me a very passionate series of messages last night about this, saying, this is completely, going to go against Bruno. He's not an option anymore, blah, blah, blah. So
it's not just Bruno, though, is it? It's not just Bruno. It's all penalties. I think we're going to have fewer penalties, to begin with, anyway.
What,
do you not see it like that?
Do you think they're going to go too far the other way then?
Yeah, that's typically what they do. Yeah. Is they go to the extreme for the first 6 weeks, and then look at the data and go, oh God, that's a bit wrong. We need to get it back in line, and then it goes back to normal again. So if they're going to stick to type, we will get some really obvious penalties not given and few penalty kicks. Do you not think? Do you not think that's the way it's going to go?
I guess so. I mean, I'm surely they're just trying to get it to a point of which, like it was in the Euros, where it worked pretty well, and it does in these kind of international tournaments.
Yeah.
But I do agree they have proven to be fairly incompetent so far. So it wouldn't surprise me if it went another way.
It's just where do you draw the line though? That's the thing. It's not like there's a definite type of penalty they can go, right, we're not going to give that type of penalty anymore. Is there really? I wouldn't say so.
They tried to with some examples. I don't know if you looked at the examples. They did try to do that.
Go on then.
I can't remember what they were now, but they were talking, for example, of Sterling's one for England, and that wouldn't be given. They gave that as an example. There was another one, an Arsenal one. I can't remember who it was now, but I looked at it and they said that wouldn't be given now. And I'm with you though, Mark. I think that just knowing the history that we've got from the refs, generally when they put out this new guidance, they just completely cock it up in the first 5 or 6 weeks, because just generally they're just pretty incompetent. So I wouldn't. The thing is, how much can you really rely on that? Because after that 5 or 6 weeks, it might revert. I think it was last season where we had a ridiculous amount of penalties at the very start. And yes, penalties continue to be a theme throughout the season, but they did drop off a little bit once they sort of got their hands around it, especially the handball rule. So yeah, I mean, how much of an impact it makes, I'm not so sure. But I do think in the first few weeks there'll be some teething issues as usual.
Does that actually put you off getting like penalty takers though?
No,
because that seems a pretty big call. Like to not go for Bruno because of this.
Well, you wouldn't go Jorginho, would you? On the back of it.
Well, I wouldn't go with him anyway, but no, probably not. But
hold on a minute, Andy paid a £5 for some advice, and they said get Jorginho. Do you not see that video?
I actually really enjoyed that video.
Yeah. No, but you wouldn't
want to give Slippers too much credit.
I don't.
It was a good one.
It was a good one. I don't think you would rule out players, but I think, well, having said that, there are players like Pascal Gross, for example, right? The only reason you get him, and Natalie's got her in her team.
No bias.
Is for penalties, right? Is it not? Would you not say?
Well, he was. I assume she's got him because his stats are always good. He's that kind of player who always. She's been spent a lot of time looking at the numbers. Natalie's my apprentice. For anyone who hasn't seen the apprentice video, go and watch that on the channel. Natalie doesn't have much football knowledge, but she's been doing a lot of research into the stats. And Gross is a stats guy,
right?
So she would have seen that he got a couple of goals, got a couple of assists. I think his chances created was right up there with some of the most elite players. They always are.
But
to finish them.
He's creating them for Mopé and Welbeck. That's the problem. But I think Gross is probably in that bracket where me thinking there wouldn't be many penalties early on would tip me against going for him. Bruno, I'm not so sure. But
I just, on the Bruno thing, I just think, I mean, people just say Man United get loads of penalties, and yeah, they do, but that's no reason to think they're just going to get 12 again. Like, surely regression to the mean was going to happen anyway. I'm kind of annoyed that this guidance come out, because I was hoping they just wouldn't get like 12 penalties again. Because, I mean, there's loads of top teams that spend a lot of time in the box. Man City spend even more time in the box. They've got fast and tricky players all over the pitch. I'm not buying this old Man United are just God's gift to penalties and therefore they get them. It's like throwing dice, essentially. I mean, why haven't we all got Mihailovic in our team then? Because Palace got 12 or 13 before. It just, there's a little bit of luck there. I agree that the top teams will get more, but to say Man United will get more than any other top team is just out there for me anyway. So I'm kind of annoyed at it, to be honest. Because I think Bruno's a great option, obviously, and he's a good option for the first few weeks because the fixtures are good, but I wasn't sure he'd be worth 12 million, and now I think more people will be questioning that. I'm pretty upset about that, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that is the case. I think more people now will question whether Bruno is worth the 12 million initially until it's settled down. I think it will. My prediction is it'll have an impact in the first 6 weeks, and then they'll have another meeting and go, we've gone a bit too far, we need to, and then it'll be all right again. So I don't think it's a season-long thing.
I think it had to happen, though, because it's ruining the game. The spectacle of the game, just too many penalties. We don't want to be playing a game where it's like field goals. Do you know what I mean? It's just, it was stupid. Like, some of the penalties that were given were ridiculous, and then with the offside calls as well, obviously it just ruins the game when people are level as far as.
But the thing is, I got used to it, right? I got used to it until I watched the Euros, and I was like, this is what it could be like. Yeah, exactly, I know. Yeah.
The enjoyment's back, exactly.
Yeah.
Take away FPL, it just needed to happen, full stop. Well, whether they'll actually be able to come through with what they're promising, we'll see. But They needed to do something because it was just encouraging diving, for example. Just no punishments for diving. It's just absolutely mental. I mean, they've literally said this time, if you don't go to ground, you will still get penalties. I struggle to believe that referees are going to be able to do that.
It won't happen.
No, exactly. I like the idea, but imagine someone getting fouled in the penalty area, they don't go down, and a ref blows up for a penalty. It'll be interesting to see. Then
they're going to be called too soft again, and then it's going to reverse all this work they're trying to do to reduce the number of penalties. They just make too many rods for their own backs, I think, and find it hard to find like a decent balance. Yeah. It is interesting to talk. You're both kind of going off Bruno though, and saying that you're annoyed that this is going to mean less people go for it.
This was before.
Because I'm moving way more towards Bruno now than I ever was when I was looking at a Sancho draft. I'm all in. I'm all in on Bruno. I think he's much better option than I think you two are giving him credit for.
I think Luke and I were both off Bruno anyway, and we're just biased and using this as confirmation, right?
Probably.
Yeah. I can hear Raptor now. Yeah.
Buy my book.
Thumbing through his book, yeah, exactly. Well, no, I can't. I mean, yeah, there could be a bit of that. There could be a bit like, oh, this is just what I need to confirm that I don't want to go Bruno. Because when you decide not to go with a player like him, you look for any scrap of evidence to support it.
Night when you were sending me all those messages about this.
I was teasing you. That's why. Yeah.
You told me an hour before about Bruno. So
yeah, I mean, I do think it helps me in my decision. I definitely think it makes me feel better about not going him.
But what about, for example, Salah versus Mane? Mane's
you still go Salah, don't you?
Well, there we go. See, so I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference. Like maybe a little bit, but
it does because 9 of his 18 goals were penalties, right? So it's half his goal count.
Yeah, but like we said, I just think that would come down anyway.
But you go?
When's
Mane
the guy ever going to miss
Bruno?
a penalty? Surely he's going to miss one eventually. Come on.
Do you go Mane over Bruno though? I think that's I think Salah's just non-negotiable, but you don't see too many Salah Mane drafts, and you do see plenty of them with Salah and Bruno. You could argue with the fixtures, with this penalty thing.
I would consider
it. Then surely Mane is the the better premium.
I've done some drafts with Mane in, and I'm probably doing another one with Mane in. So. We'll see. But anyway, we'll leave it there. We'll come back to our teams in a bit. Another issue I want to talk about is Grealish, and obviously one of the players there's a lot of speculation about, and our FPL lineups are going to be dictated by what happens here. If he goes to City, that's going to change a lot of things. Of course, we're going to reconsider City assets as a result of that and figure out where Grealish fits in. And also, if he does go, we've got to look at Villa. Do you not think? Do you not think that it'll have an impact on Villa? And just to highlight that, I've got some stats here with and without Grealish last season, and as you would expect, the Villa attack is down for all the key indicators. So with Grealish, they were minutes per goal, minutes per shot in the box, minutes per shot on target, all up compared to the 11 matches without him. Interestingly, the defence was okay without Grealish. They still play. In fact, for some stats, for some key indicators, they did better off without Grealish in the team. But I think the key
have to, right, be a bit more solid.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Looks a brave when they can.
I think Dean Smith set them out more solid, certainly in away games. But I think the key for me is Watkins there in the bottom graph, which shows, minutes per XG without Grealish, it almost doubles. So you can see the quality of the chance that Watkins got without Grealish in the team plummeted. And given how popular Watkins is at the moment in ownership, that could be, Grealish's departure will make us rethink that, I think. I mean, for one, I'm not looking at Villa attacking assets if Grealish goes until I've seen until I've seen them, because Buendia is a brilliant player, no doubt about that, and they are going to make more. Looking at Abraham maybe as a sign-in as well, they will spend that money and they'll spend it quickly, I imagine, to appease the fans and so on. But they're a team in flux. If Grealish goes, they're a team. Have you
watched the highlight reel of Bailey? This guy.
Yeah, he's a good player. But he comes from the Bundesliga, right?
I haven't been so impressed with a highlight reel since Havertz.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
these stats. I think Alexander Wilson says. I mean, he says they're pointless. They're not pointless because they're important to look at, and obviously Villa will be weakened without Grealish. But adding Buendia and Bailey has surely got to compensate at least a bit for Watkins for Grealish losing. And Villa have the best 3 fixtures to start the season, so. I would agree with you that if Grealish went and the fixtures were okay, that maybe you could ignore. But I just think you need one at least to start easy. I've got 2 at the moment.
I don't know. I don't agree with that at all. I think it's a risk given the options you've got at Buendia's price point and Watkins' price point. I think it's a risk to just presume that Buendia and Bailey just slot in and it compensates for Grealish straight away.
But surely the fixtures argument that we had last week, pointing to the best attacks do the best against the worst fixtures and defence is less predictable. Surely, like when you've got 3 fixtures like that, two promoted teams in the first 3. You
consider them, but it depends on the options you've got. Well, I don't know. I don't think you have got to back Watkins.
Really?
No, I don't.
Wow.
I don't necessarily think you have.
That to me is a hell of a lot braver than backing Watkins to do well.
All right. Well, what do you think, Luke, on Watkins if without Grealish?
I think losing Grealish would hurt any team, to be honest. So I don't, I expect that will probably happen. And yeah, they've got new players, so you're not really sure how they'll fit in. I know Buendia likes to come deep a lot, for example. The whole makeup of the team will be slightly different. Obviously, they're not going to be looking for him every time they get the ball, which is what they do when he's on the pitch. And then, you have to think, well, maybe Bailey, he strikes me as a little bit more of a selfish player. And then even Traore, when he plays, he's he's unique, I suppose. He's a very different player. And then El Ghazi's incredibly selfish if he actually plays, just shoots all the time. So you have to think that the service to Watkins will be slightly different. Maybe it will be more like getting rebounds off of shots than it will be feeding him in certain areas to turn and have a shot. But I just think the fixtures are really, really good at the start, and there's an obvious move from him to Jimenez in game week 4, I think it is, after 3, that a lot of people might be eyeing up. That I'd probably still... he's in my current draft at the moment. I'm not 100% on him, but I just think the fixtures are good enough to give him a chance. Because I also just think he is just a really good player and he's developing. And when I watch him play, I know it doesn't count for much because at the end of the day, all we care about is the points. But he is just a real handful. He never stops running. He's all over the place. He's trying to make things happen. And I just think they've got enough good players on the pitch that they'll do okay, I think, in the first 3 games. I think there's, out of all the teams, they have got the best 3 fixtures. So why not give it a go, essentially?
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And for me, it's Watkins, Antonio or Tony. If I went with 3 up front, I would go Watkins, probably. But currently, I'm not.
Well,
so he's not out of my thinking.
Is Watkins or Greenwood? That's what I'm looking at for the same price, and obviously swap the position. At the moment, it's Watkins. Earlier in the day, it was Greenwood. So one of those.
I don't really understand why so many people are going for Greenwood.
Well, because Rashford's out and Sancho might not be ready to start the season. So Cavani's
might
also
not be ready to start the season, but he's very much a player you're going to have to get rid of probably in a couple of weeks, at least.
Well,
he's got
maybe, but
1 week against Leeds who are quite good.
Well, I don't know. We scored 6 versus them last time.
That's a good point. I can't see that happening again though, game week 1.
No, but I think the fixtures are obviously great. That's why everyone's going for Bruno, and you're getting someone in a more advanced position than Bruno when Bruno might be getting slightly less penalties. I don't see, and he's nearly half the price. I don't think it's a bad move, to be honest. I think that you're always risking an early sub with him, but we've seen before that he can go on runs and produce a lot of goals. So I think a lot depends on Pogba at the end of the day. If Pogba's going to play left wing, then it's going to be a problem because Sancho or Greenwood will probably play right wing, and then Cavani's up top, and obviously it's going to be Sancho in the long run. But if Pogba's not playing on that left wing slot, maybe he's going and we don't really know what the situation is. I can't see him playing in midfield. We really need Fred and McTominay because we just don't have a DM that can do it on his own at the moment. So then Pogba doesn't play, and then Sancho will have to go left wing, I imagine, which will be pretty good for him, and then Greenwood will be on the right. So I think his minutes chance are pretty high in the first few weeks. I'm not saying keep him long term, definitely not, but for 3 weeks or so, I think he's a good option.
Yeah,
Watkins every time.
Would you? You're going for? Watkins is in your team at the moment, and has he ever gone anywhere? Have you ever done drafts about him?
No way. Not with those first 3. Like you just target a striker who's playing 2 promoted teams in the first 3. That's just like basic 101 of FPL. I know. And at the moment they've still got Grealish, and even if they lose him, I still think there's enough creativity in that team to get goals. And look, I really rate him. I just think he's a really, really good player. It's not like I'm getting in Mopay and just targeting fixtures. I think he's a player who could actually build on what he did last season, because he missed quite a few chances, hit the post about 5 or 6 times, could have had even more goals. If Villa can do it right again, he could hit 20 goals. But
he got 3 goals in 11 games without Grealish, right? So the strike rate, he definitely did suffer without Grealish there. Villa did suffer, not just him, but Villa did suffer, and they've got to come up with a new blueprint, right, without Grealish, right? And they've got to get used to having mean, Bailey and Buendia, will they get a chance to start together? They might get one friendly together, right? So it's going to take time, isn't it? For them to gel.
Is like one of the most creative players in the league.
Yeah.
Like he was in the Championship. Like they've replaced him with like an unbelievably creative player. And it never really felt like he was trusted in the Premiership with Norwich, but he was trusted in the Championship. It's whether he can make the step up.
Yeah.
But the signs are that he can, and I think he's there. He's there to fill the void. So if you're gonna, I don't know. I trust him to do it now. He's moved. I wouldn't have trusted him at Norwich, but I like what Villa are building. Again, I think they've had an amazing transfer window. So yeah, I've got to get in on that on the first three.
Yeah, I mean, there's no argument if Grealish stays for me, but I just what the worry I've got, because Watkins is so highly owned, as we'll see, if he blanks in that opening game and Wilson scores and Antonio scores.
No, I can't see that. I don't think he'll go down in price. Not with
you
the
don't
game.
think he'll go down in price?
Surely people won't be.
You'd hope. Yeah,
taking him out with them 2 games. I mean, I suppose anything can happen. The only thing I'll put as a counterpoint is Watkins' expected goal involvement over the season is actually pretty low for strikers. It's below a lot of names, per 90 anyway. It's not as high. I mean, it's below Madja, for example, Diangane, Morpie himself, Bamford, Cavani. Like, you can go on the list. Lacazette. There's loads of them. Like, right at the top, you've got the likes of Antonio and Iñárritu, and I think Iñárritu is probably, if I wasn't going Watkins, it'd probably be Iñárritu, but obviously that carries this slight element of risk now.
Yeah,
I like Nacho actually. I think he'd probably be the one if I wasn't going for Watkins at 7.5.
Yeah, it's just this injury to Evans that for me means that they might go to a back four, and then if that happens, I mean, when the game was first launched, I literally just built my team, and Iñárritu was one of the first names that went in, like straight away. And I know people were saying we're not sure about game time because Barnes comes back, he's a great player. I was like, there's no way this guy can't be playing considering how well he was playing back in the last season. Yeah.
And then pre-season as well.
They obviously signed Dako, who looks a great player, and then Evans got this injury, which means they may go to a back four, and suddenly it's like, well, maybe, I guess. Maybe he will be playing a slightly different role. So that would be my only worry. Otherwise, I'd go for Iñárritu over Watkins because his data's far better. And yeah, he looks impossible to control sometimes. I mean, the guy is hitting absolute rockets from any angle. There's banging in the top corner. Maybe that's not possible to continue.
It was a weird season. It was a weird season.
If we could be certain on Iñárritu starts, I'd be on him as well.
Yeah, I suppose that's what it is, right? But
I mean, that's the problem. I mean, the thing about Watkins as well, if they do, I mean, there's talk of them looking at Abrahams. If he comes in, if Tammy Abraham comes in, then Watkins is moving out wide anyway, right? Because surely Tammy's not going there to sit on the bench, is he?
Well, the thing is, he's fit and playing games at the moment as well, so you'd expect he would come straight in, wouldn't you? And then Watkins at left wing.
It will kill it though, won't it?
I just don't know what would happen. I mean, if that happens, I just avoid them all because I just.
He's played there before as a left wing. He's kind of a left winger turned striker, so it wouldn't be completely surprising.
But it'd be a shame.
If Abraham signs for Villa, I'm off. I would completely 360. I'd go for Abraham.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he'll be on pens as well, even though there won't be any pens, of course. But yeah, I mean, that will change everything. I think that would be a shame if Abraham goes there because it will kill Buendia, who should be an option for us, if not at the start as the season progresses. I don't know what Bailey's going to come in at. Is his price been discussed yet? I mean,
I guess what would you get? I guess 6.
I hope it is 6. Because it makes him an option then if Abraham's at 6.5, obviously. But I do. I mean, I said today on Twitter it'd be a shame if Abraham goes to Villa. Good for Villa, but not good for FPL. I don't think
he's got to go to West Ham. He'd be such a good fit at West Ham. They really need a striker.
Well, that's the end of Antonio then, isn't it, as an option?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. They're just rotating.
Better if he went to Arsenal. I'd take that. That'd be amazing.
But you wouldn't get him though, would you? If he went to Arsenal?
What if he went to Arsenal? I think I would. They don't know who they want to play up front most weeks. I think
that's the problem.
Well, I think they'd get rid of Lacazette
sure they would
if they were doing that. I think if they got rid of Lacazette and they got him in, I mean, there's already signs of Aubameyang's playing left wing again in pre-season, so I'd err towards Tammy then. I think that'd be good. But the fixtures are dreadful, so you could wait, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Right, okay. Another discussion this week is Kane, of course. Right, he's not turned up for training 2 days running. He says he's going to make it at the weekend, though. Hey, I mean,
that's nice of him to turn
up.
I know.
I mean, what's going on there? What's he playing at there? Are you shocked by it all?
Well, it's this gentleman's agreement, isn't it? This is what's so weird about it. He said that in the summer he had a chat with Levy and was like, if City come in for me, I want to go. And apparently Daniel Levy was like, yeah, that's fine, mate. See you later. And Daniel Levy's denying all mention of it. And so Kane's thrown his toys at the pram. He's the one player who I would never have thought he'd do this.
Well, I think it was really signposted. He was having loads of interviews basically saying De Bruyne's great and I'd love to play with him. Like,
I know, but even in this situation, I still would never have thought Kane just wouldn't turn up for a week.
It's
and
just the way modern
strike.
football is now, right? He doesn't want to play for a team that's not. I mean, they're not going to win a trophy this season. Almost clip that just in case they do, but they're probably not going to win a trophy this season, are they? And he's like what, 28 now or something? So, yeah, I don't like it, but at the end of the day, if he wants to get a move, he's got to, throw his teddies out the pram,
on strike. But surely he just hands in a transfer request. Why has he got to go on strike?
I think you lose money when you do that. For example, I think your wages. Get cut.
So it's out.
Yeah.
So it's
yeah. But
so that immediately tells me this is a guy who's been given his
looking
chance
after
by
his own
Spurs.
interests. Yeah, shot.
Every
footballer does.
Yeah, but he's the one that keeps signing these huge contracts with Spurs, 4 years, 5 years down the line.
Yeah.
But when he signed it, they were Champions League, right? And now look where they've gone. Pochettino was there. It's a very different scenario, right? So I mean, I just don't like the way he's gone about it because there's no way back from here, is there? They're not going to be singing he's one of our own. Well, not in a Spurs shirt. You wouldn't have thought.
Yeah, no.
If City signed Grealish. If City signed Grealish, I can't see him signing Kane. I've said it right from the start. I just don't think they're going to spend 225 million on two players. And I think if they get Grealish, they'll wait and get Haaland. And
what's he doing?
Do
you think he's trying to force this move through then before the Grealish one goes through? Do you reckon it's City going, we can only get one of them, who do we go for? And Kane panicked and went, well, I've got to act now because they're going to get Grealish.
Yeah. I think there probably is an element of that. I think there probably is an element of, I don't think City are going to buy both of us. I need to be the front runner, but I don't think he is.
I think they want Kane and Jack is the fullback. That's what I think. I mean, it fits because Kane. They need a centre forward, right? At the end of the day, and I feel like they're telling when they've spoke to Levy, example, they've tried to get him to force it through, and they've basically said to Kane, "You're going to have to do something if you want to come to us." I think that's what it's going to be because otherwise we're going for Jack. I mean, who knows at the end of the day? But I feel like Kane is the better fit for them, right? So I think Pep would know that too, surely, right? I mean, everyone else would say Kane is the better fit, wouldn't they? And then there was noise today, I saw on Twitter, that Jack might sign a new contract and be a legend at the club.
I saw that as well.
Yeah. So
he only signed the last one last year. It's crazy business, isn't it? Anyway, right, so where does that leave us then? Where does it leave us?
Just ignoring both of them until we know any different, unfortunately.
Yeah. And what about Son's prospect if Kane does go? I mean, Son's a player you're interested in, and I'm interested in as well, Luke. I mean, we take penalties out of it. He will be on penalties if Kane goes, such as they are. But I mean, I looked at a thread by FPL Chimp Paradox, who took some data from Fancy Football Scout, and he started looking at Son without Kane and Son with Kane. And it's quite interesting. I mean, like Son overall, Son had his best season last season, 37 games, 17 goals. His expected assists were up, his goals were up. His big chances created were up. He had his best season, right? But that was with Kane. But even looking back over historically 26 matches without Kane, he's fared well. His goals are up per 90. His XG's up per 90. A lot of the key areas up per 90. So Son has done okay without Kane there, even though last season they were just a double act and unstoppable. What do we think if Kane did go? Where do we think that leaves Son as an FPL asset at 10 million?
Well, also, there's also a different manager now, so you just don't know at the end of the day, and we don't even know for sure which formation Nuno Sancho wants to play, do we? Does anyone know for sure that he wants to play the Wolves 3-5-2 or he wants to play 4 at the back? I mean, it's just total guesswork right now. The one thing I do know is Son is a ridiculously good footballer and always has been. He just always had issues with fitness and other things that made that he didn't always play like a huge amount of minutes across the season. Obviously he's fixed that last year and showed what he can do, and under Jose he was tracking back all over the place and everything, so I don't think his fitness is so much in question these days. So I don't doubt that he'll be a really good option, but there is just a little bit of uncertainty there. I mean, if they do play with the three up top and play with wing backs, is he the central striker? I mean, they don't have anyone else, do they? So I imagine that's where he'll play. I'm not sure that role suits him entirely. I feel like he would be better coming off the wing on the left side, like the Jota position. But
if Kane goes, they're going to have 120 million to spend. So
Yeah,
it's
but
not like
again,
they're
how
going to
quickly-
sit back. But like, yeah, but they're going to have. They might do what they did when they sold Bale and just go out and sign a load of.
I suppose, but the season's 2 weeks away. Like, do you know what I mean? I feel like Son will be a really good option. I do, because I just think he's a great player. But there is just an element of doubt because he's priced 10 million now because he had 223 points or whatever it was last season, a ridiculous season. Do I think he can match that again? Probably not. But can he get 200 points again? Probably.
I wouldn't have thought he would have been capable of getting 200 points under Mourinho.
Well, this is it. But he did, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, his XG numbers and everything suggest that he's just like the world's greatest finisher. Can that continue? Maybe it just goes down a bit because, who can keep that up? But apparently he can. So it's just a really tricky one to know an answer at this stage. We just don't have enough information. I know that's a proper fence-sitting situation, but I do like
the most on the fence answer.
But the thing is,
no, but I'm still going to get him. Because I like his games.
Well, game week 3, Watford at home, right? I don't have any doubts he's going to start up front for Spurs, right? Even if Kane's still at the club, I can't see him starting the first couple of games anyway, because they've already prepared us for that, saying he needs rest because of Europe and all this controversy. They'll let that die down. So I think Son's going to start the season up front, and I think it's the game week 3 fixture at home to Watford where a Spurs attacker looks a good option, doesn't it, for captaincy? And so that's why I'm looking at him as well, seriously considering. Because I think he will, as a central striker, I think he's got everything he needs, right? And I think he's shown in pre-season already, he's played that position. I think they played a 4-3-3 in the first game.
They did.
Yeah, so I think...
They played 4 at the back anyway, I don't know what the rest
they played Doherty, but he didn't play wing-backs. So I think Son starts in the middle up front, and he's effective there, right? The data here shows he has been effective in that position before. I think we've got to consider him. I think he is an elite finisher, right? He's shown that, and the data shows that, and we've seen it with our eyes, basically. So it's just what Spurs team will we get?
Yeah, he's just in that like premium bracket now without playing for a premium team, and it's a bit like when Vardy hit that kind of 10 million mark. Yeah, and it just makes you feel like this is a lot of money to be paying for a Leicester player who they could finish 8th and 9th or something, and it won't be too surprising. Spurs could finish 10th next year. I don't really think. I think Nuno is a bit of a desperate appointment for them. I don't think he was first choice or second choice. He probably wasn't even third choice. They wanted Conte, they wanted Pochettino back. They probably had other options. They've settled on Nuno probably because he'd left Wolves, and they needed to get someone in. Doesn't exactly, inspire a lot of. And they're starting the season losing their talisman, who's and now all this stuff that's rumbling up. It's awful preparations for the start of the season as well. Yeah, I really like Son. I think Son is great, and the fact he's signed this big contract amongst all of this, I think shows how loyal he is to whatever project they're doing.
He must have known, right?
Absolutely.
When he signed that contract, he knew what Kane was doing. Must have done. So, I think Son fancies being the top dog there. I mean, even if they went out and signed a striker, they'd struggle to sign one as good as Son. I think. He's an absolute elite. It's just if they want to get a kind of like a target man like a Jimenez or a Kane or someone just to because Son up front is quite a lightweight option, isn't it? It's a bit like when Martial was up front. Like it works. There's no plan B really. So that, they've got Cavani now who gives them something extra. I think Spurs definitely need to get a plan B.
That was my only concern, is the fact that what we've seen from Nuno is he likes to have Jimenez up top. And I know he tried to change things at Wolves. There's awful timing, injuries, all sorts of other things. And it's just like, is he going to be able to get the best out of him as a central striker? I don't know. But I just have massive faith in Son. So I almost wanted to just ignore all of that stuff and just say, the games are good. Son's an excellent player. He has now potentially added these penalties to his arsenal. And I just think... the ball's going to be going to him 24/7. Who else are they going to look to?
Exactly.
It's like, you're not going to pass to Lucas Moura, are you? Have a word with yourself. You're going to pass to Son. So I feel like he's going to do fine.
I think you're harsh on Moura there, Luke. I thought
he's all right, bless him.
He's average at best. His hat-trick was good though in the Champions League.
Yeah, I think Son's still. I'm still considering him. I'm even putting money in the bank to make sure I can go to him in game week 3. I think it's something I want to leave open because I just think that is a good fixture for him at home to Watford. I think his pace and his movement, he doesn't need many chances to score goals. No. He's a brilliant finisher.
He's so clinical.
And ultimately, it's a midfielder up front.
Yeah, on penalties. Yeah.
Exactly, and that in FPL is often gold dust, right? We get that. We all know we get the extra point for the goal, the extra point for the clean sheet.
We had it with Aubameyang, right? We had it with Aubameyang last season, and we were all going. I think he was 11, wasn't he, Aubameyang, as a midfielder?
12, wasn't he? Was he 12?
May even been that.
I think he was 12.
He was the same as Salah, whatever Salah was.
Yeah, he was the most expensive.
Right, so he was a midfielder playing up front for Arsenal, who arguably our team.
He played left wing though, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. But we were excited about that pre-season. We were going, Aubameyang, 12 million. He's going to be playing up front. He's definitely in my team. And yet for some, I'm not seeing that yet. But I think there will be.
City game week 1 doesn't help.
No.
Just like sometimes when just things align though. What a game to have as game week 1. Like all this stuff going on with Kane going to City and they're playing.
Yeah, but he'll be in the stands, won't he? He'll be in the stands either way. He'll be in the stands, right? Yeah.
For which one?
Well,
God, it's gonna be red cards. It's gonna be such bad blood of.
He'll be at Spurs until the window shuts. It'll happen. It won't happen until into the season, I don't think. I don't think
it'll be final day if it happens.
Yeah, it won't happen before game week 1. But it's whether now Grealish does as well. I mean, maybe it's put down the buffers as well. So.
But that's what I mean, though. If all these transfers are still rumbling on right until the transfer window shuts, they're going to be playing City with all this stuff going on. Surely that gives City the upper hand in that even more than they would do anyway. Yeah,
no, absolutely. And I guess Grealish will end up starting the season for Villa and see what happens. But
yeah.
Okay, the Twitter template. So talk us through the process of putting this together, because didn't you do an appeal on Twitter and go, send us your teams, and then obviously you got a load of teams, right? And you got 3 or 4 hours of work to do.
Yeah, massive response. So I got about nearly 700 replies to my message.
700 replies?
With different teams.
Wow.
Unbelievable. And I thought, right, I'm going to put my research hat on. I'm going to take 100 of these, random sample, from the list, and build this template out. And it became apparent very, very quickly that there was a very, very strong Twitter template, and I think most people know that anyway. But I got to 50, and I looked at the percentages, and then I got to 60, and the percentage barely changed, and I got to 70, and they'd barely changed, and in the end I did 75, and that took me 3.5 hours, and I thought, let's just not listen.
Bit of a cop-out, Luke, if you ask me that.
Bit of a cop-out.
It's not 7,000 words, is it?
No, it isn't 7,000 words. Yeah, exactly. Come on. Slacking.
But yeah, I mean, and then like I said, I put the Twitter template on. Well, I said, can anyone guess it? And Andy Mack, who we know well, Mark, you're staying in his house.
My landlord, yeah.
Your landlord at Fest. He guessed it straight away. So the template for the listeners on the audio, the Twitter template is Sanchez and Foster, Alexander-Arnold, Shaw, Dean, Eiling, and Robertson, if you're doing it properly, but Fofana if you're building an actual team that you could have, because obviously they'll take you over the budget. Salah, Rafinha, Fernandes, Buendia, Brownhill, who is
the enabler of choice, isn't he, this season? The
enabler of choice, absolutely. I'll say a bit more about these percentages in a bit. Watkins, Antonio, and Tony. Now, a few things kind of struck me with it. Firstly, I wasn't really too surprised by any of these names, other than Eiling. I was quite surprised to see Eiling there. As you know, he was in nearly 40% of the teams that I looked at. So in terms of 4 or 5 option, it's him and Fofana who are kind of winning that battle. The likes of Soufal were quite highly owned, but obviously didn't make this cut. And I mean, Trent, Shaw and Dean is just so strong. Salah 92.9% ownership, so very, very few people are going without him. And the biggest difference between the Twitter template percentage and the overall percentage on FPL is Antonio. So Antonio's 54% owned on Twitter, but only 13% owned on overall. So he's the kind of player who you could avoid because you want to be different, but actually if he bangs, you're going to still get quite a big return from it, particularly early on in the season. So yeah, that's the template. I mean, does any? I mean, Luke, what do you think? You hate templates. You hate ownership.
This is why you're here, Luke, to break this up.
This is why you're here. Well, I mean, I'm looking at this team and I'm think I can see why this is the template. It's a good team, isn't it? To be honest.
Well, this is it. And I mean, at the very start, I mean, I don't know how much differential you have to really go, right? I mean, you could argue that throughout the whole season, but at the start in particular, I mean, the prices of and the fixtures, we all have the same information, right? I put a tweet out about it. We've all got the same information right now, roughly. We've got the same fixtures in front of us. The prices are static. It just looks really strong to me. I think that's just a really good team. I can't really pick any holes in it, to be honest. I think they're all good. I mean, Fofana, we said about maybe there's some rotation there. I like to have players who can potentially get you some attacking output from the back, and he's not really one of them. So he's a debatable one for me, but he does have some good games to start with, and 4.5 million for a Leicester defender. I mean, I was saying before as well, it's ridiculous that we're paying such cheap prices for defences that are in like the top 8 and talking about rotations between like Ben White, Ayling and Fofana and Brighton defenders. In the past, you know, we were dealing with some horrific names and horrific players in our 4 million and 4.5 rotations from like the bottom barrel, like promoted team. We don't need to do that anymore. So it's taken a little bit away from it for me, from the you know, the more engaged managers can use that stuff to their advantage, whereas now it's just so easy to log in and go, oh, Ben White plays for Arsenal and he's 4.5 million, I'll have a bit of that. Same as Fofana. Yeah, I mean, I can't really argue with any of those picks, to be honest, and I'd say I think every single one of them has probably been in a draft at some point in my team. I do like Ayling a lot, actually. I know he's not got great games to begin with, but I think of the 4.5 million defenders, he's probably the best across the season, personally.
Yeah, his XGI last season was really high. He didn't get any returns whatsoever, but threatened a lot, didn't he, to do that? And surely he has a bit more luck this season with that.
Well, I think with Dallas going into midfield as well, I think that might help him a little bit in terms of bonus occasionally, and Meslier, who I think we'll get to at some point. I think that will make a significant impact. Yeah, I just think, I've got a lot of them in my draft right now, so I'm not going to sit here and say any of them are bad. I'm not sure about Buendia. I think that maybe you could do more with that spot. That's the one I'd probly pick. But apart from that,
so he's an example of quite a Twittery pick. He's 12% owned overall, 38.6% owned in the game. So and the same with Rafinha as well. So 54.3% compared to 22. So to me, these two picks, I think all the other ones kind of have quite good histories of doing quite well, and you kind of know what you're going to get. But Rafinha, we've seen him underperform FPL-wise last season quite a few times. Amazing player, but sometimes struggle to get the return. So he's being picked for the potential, and so is Buendia as well. So they're the kind of players that maybe the likes of our apprentices, Mark, wouldn't go for, which is why their ownership is down. But Twitter is, you know, a bit more clued up, so go to them. I mean, the big one here, Mark, is you mentioned Watkins earlier. I mean, 87%.
Yeah, it's huge compared to 36 in the game.
Compared to 36 in the game.
I mean, I guess that's the fixtures, right?
That's the fixtures. So if you go without him, not only you 36% owned overall is high anyway, and he gets a hat-trick game week 1, but also, you know, your target of aiming for the likes of Slippers and those guys, I mean, he's going to be in every competitor for you team around. So, you know, we talk about ownership quite a lot. Does seeing that make you more likely to go with them, do you think, or would you
No, it doesn't. It doesn't make me more likely to go with him.
That's the right answer.
No, I do have doubts about how Villa will start, right? Because I do think that Smith without Grealish was a more negative manager away from home, definitely, right? So I don't think that they're going to. And I think 2 of their first 3 are away from home. They're good games, but I mean, let's just remind ourselves what the fixtures are. So. Where are Villa on here? Villa, Watford, Newcastle, Brentford. Okay, so they've got 2 home games. Their first game is Watford away. I don't know what we'll get in that first game. Watford's defence at home was very strong as well, right? It was, I think, 61% clean sheets at home in the Championship. So we think when we're looking at Watford's keeper, it's the home fixtures we're banking on there. So although that looks an easy game, we don't know what we're going to get from Watford, and we suspect that at home they're going to be quite hard to break down because that's what they were like in the Championship. So my only doubt is about that first game. I don't know whether he'll start with a hat-trick like you say. I think it's more likely if Villa win that, it'll be quite a narrow victory, like a 1-0, because I don't see Smith going for it. I think he's been pretty cagey away from home without Grealish. So, but it depends. Like Grealish could be in the team if City haven't sealed the deal. He's going to be in the team, and then, you know, all bets. And I probably will go Watkins then. I mean, I think that decides it for me. I just think as it stands with so much doubt, I think Antonio's better. I prefer Antonio. And you're either in the Tone camp or you're not. I've got Ivan Toney at the moment, and I'm playing 5 in midfield. So that means my third striker is going to be a budget striker. But Watkins, undoubtedly, if I was playing 3 up front, would be in my team. No doubt. But I'm going for 5 in midfield.
So you mentioned Tony. I mean, Tony's interesting because his ownership, he's one of the few players on this list where his Twitter ownership kind of marries up with the overall. So 38.6% Twitter, 31.3%. So a bit more highly owned. I was actually expecting that to be a lot higher for the Twitter guys, because you see everyone's talking about Tony. There's so much hype around him. I can't really remember a player so hyped up in pre-season, but it was interesting that there are I didn't actually make a note of the formations, but there are quite a few people playing 5 in midfield. There's a lot of people going 4 at the back.
Right.
And when people do go 4 at the back, it is Watkins and Antonio.
Yeah.
There's a few people mentioning Calvert-Lewin. He was 33%, so he nearly broke into that kind of thing, ahead of Tony. He's bat, and Wilson as well. I think Wilson's 25% owned or something like that in the Twitter template. So, the striking options that people are kind of, apart from Watkins, Antonio in about half, and then this third one is just completely dependent on you say if you go 5 at the back, if you go 4 in midfield, or if you go for one of these guys like Wilson and Calvert-Lewin. So Tony isn't as locked into the template as I thought he would be. He was one of my biggest surprises actually with this, along with Eiling. Just the other thing I want to mention is Robertson, because Trent is like 3/4 of teams on Twitter, 27.9% overall, so he's a lot higher on the Twitter template. Robertson's 45% though. There's a lot of people doubling up with them. No one is going Robertson and no Trent.
No,
it's double up or nothing.
No, absolutely. I mean, and up until last night, I had Robertson in my defence as well. I mean, I think I want to go 3 Liverpool, right? So it's either going to be Jota or it's going to be Robertson, and I keep flip-flopping between the two. And the team I'm going to show later will have Jota in it, but that probably won't be final. I mean, the big thing for me is the midfield is where I see the opportunity to find differentials, right? I think traditionally it's always been the area, and when we look at the differentials in a bit, you'll see the choice of player where you can go a little bit different. There's a lot of them in midfield, whereas I think up front it's a bit more risky. You're looking at Wilson, who is injury prone, for example. We don't know how Newcastle are going to start. I think although on the face of it looks like there's a lot of options up front, I don't think they're ones that make me feel secure about going with them. So I think the reason why I'm going 5 in midfield and 2 up front is to give myself as much flexibility to find a couple of differentials in there, because if you go Bruno and Salah and you go Rafinha, you've only got one slot really where you're going to be different from the template, and if you go Buendia, you're not different from the template, are you? So I mean, how do we want to play the game, right? Do we want to be like everybody else?
Well, I suppose it shouldn't really matter at the start, should it? Like we said, but I just think if people are going with Bruno and Trent, then you are limiting your options, like you say, Mark. And then where are you? I mean, look at that team; it looks great, but where are you really making your transfers? I know that things will happen that will change all this, and there'll be injuries. There always is. Someone will hit form that we never expected. But looking at a team, I just feel like I probably wouldn't want to make a transfer for the rest of the season.
No, I know.
It's like,
is that a problem?
Well, maybe it's not, but I don't want to have a 6.5 million midfielder that I want to play with, as in like swap them around, and that'll be where I'm making my impactful moves. And
exactly.
That's why I think that either moving away from Bruno or even Trent to give you extra money, it could be good because it at least gives you some creativity. That could be a bad thing, but I would like to have options available to me, and I think there are players just below that premium bracket. We know that Havertz, Mahrez, there's loads of them, Son even, that could be 12 million worth of points come the end of the season. So I just think it stifles creativity a little bit.
Absolutely. So looking at that team, what's your transfer game week 2 or game week 3? Where do you change it? You're going to hope for an injury? You're going to hope for a bandwagon coming through that's stronger than any of those players? I mean, this is it. Is that the best team for the opening 2 game weeks? Because if it's not, then we've got 2 transfers by game week 3, right? We've got to use them. And the only player I can see people swapping out there is Buendia, because Rafinha comes into good fixtures. Maybe you take Watkins out.
You're acting like everything stays the same when at the start of the season. Every year I start a team with the team that I think looks good for the first 2 weeks, and I end up taking -4s.
Yeah, but that's because you're terrible at FPL.
And Antonio, that as well. But you've got to factor that in. You've got to factor that in when you're building a team that you make bad decisions. I mean, it could be that Everton under Benitez are absolutely terrible, and Dean isn't on set pieces for whatever reason, and they don't look like they can keep a clean sheet against anyone, so you take him out. It could be that Robertson looks more attacking than Trent, so you take Trent out and free up a bit of cash.
You wouldn't do that after a couple of weeks, though.
You could do if Trent's gone back to how he looked before.
Can I say something on Trent at this point, actually?
Yeah, go
people
on.
want to go Bruno, right? Okay. Everyone just says Trent's an auto pick, and I get it. I mean, obviously, everyone's got him there. As you can see, every content creator I see says, yeah, getting him. Everyone on Twitter having him. The fixtures are great. You know, he's possibly the best ever fantasy defender we've had. Like, I get all of that, but
have you got him?
I've got him as well. I mean, I am going to go.
We all
with
got him, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I think it's that creativity thing we're talking about. I mean, there's potentially defenders out there that, you know, are costing a fraction of the price. It's just a massive amount of money, 7.5 million. There's potentially, like, you could look at that first 6 fixtures for Liverpool and maybe just back it that they wouldn't just suddenly turn into a defensive juggernaut. I mean, they've got a history of this, of not being great defensively at the start of the season. I know everyone's saying Van Dijk's coming back, but there's a chance he might not be the same player again straight away. You have to remember that when Klopp took over at Liverpool, they were pretty bad defensively. They basically signed Van Dijk and Alisson and it sorted them out. They got like 21 clean sheets that season. They then dropped to 15 the year before when Van Dijk was playing, and now it dropped to 12 without him. Now, will Van Dijk just come back and be the force he was? I mean, it's not always, you know, just a foregone conclusion that he can just be ridiculously good again and a really good defensive player.
Luke, if Trent was a 7.5 midfielder, I'd even consider him playing at Liverpool, to be honest.
I do get that, and compared to the midfielders, I agree. But when you look at the other defenders and you think to yourself, let's say 6 weeks, right? I want a wild card after 6 weeks, probably in game week 7. I think that's a good idea to do that. Get quite a lot of information, really, probably enough to make some decisions, you know, fixture switches. There's all sorts of reasons why you might want to do that. If you take that block and you look at Liverpool's fixtures, if you just back the idea that they've signed a new centre-back to go along with Van Dijk, maybe Van Dijk's not quite at it. They were terrible defensively last year, really. They got 12 clean sheets. No one's talking about this new guy who, yeah, he could be good. He's come from the German league. Everyone else who comes from the German league, or has he come from the German league? Suddenly they're terrible. They can't be assets. But yeah, he's going to fit into a defence, and they're going to be a whole unit, and suddenly they're going to keep clean sheets at will.
I think
maybe not.
So but they've got Gomez and Matip. Why they?
Well, yeah, for a game or two, and then they rotate all the time because they're injured all the time. I'm just saying there is a chance that Liverpool don't start defensively really good, and then you kind of need clean sheets at 7.5 million to justify him being good. I don't doubt he'll get assists. You only have to watch him, look at the data. He'll be getting assists for fun. He always does. He always has done. He gets 1 in 4, actually. 1 assist every 3.9 games is a ridiculous record in the Premier League. So you look at that block of 6 and you think to yourself, okay, realistically, I could put him down for maybe 2 assists in that. You know, I know it doesn't always work like that. Maybe he gets 6 assists now and then gets none for 6 games. But as an average, you might get, you know, 2 assists out of those 6 because he's got a 1 in 4 record. He's got a 1 in 16 goal record, which is great for a defender, but that equates to 2 to 3 goals a season. Do you know what I mean? The chance of him getting a goal, pretty slim. I know it's nice when he steps up for a free kick, but they're low XG chances. So really,
it's not nice when Trent scores.
I know, but you basically need those clean sheets is what I'm getting at. So you could take a chance and say, okay, I don't think Liverpool start off defensively sound. They're working through some things. Van Dijk's not back. You know, got a new centre-back partnership. They were terrible last year. Take that 3 million, put Veltman in there, for example. 6 games. You could maybe say 2 clean sheets out of the 6. Maybe 1 assist if he's playing at right wing back. Suddenly he's fairly close to Trent in terms of his returns, and he costs 3 million less. You then take that 3 million, you go to Buendia and you go, I'll have Mahrez instead, and then I'll change him to Pepe, and then I'll change him to Havertz, and then I'll find 0.5 and change him to Son.
I agree with you, right?
Saying?
But what you're saying there, I think, is a small. You could say the same for Bruno and go, I won't go Bruno, I'll go Havertz.
Yeah, well, that's
save
what I've
4 million.
Yeah.
And there's every chance Havertz outscores Bruno in the first 3 or 4 games. Over a small period of matches, I agree with you.
Yeah.
But
well,
I
that's
think.
What I'm saying. If I'm going to wildcard in game week 7, the bottom line is I look at the defenders list in game week 6, I bring up the points, and Trent isn't right at the top of that list, I have to think that that's pretty much a fail, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I get it.
Can I say, if you're planning on wildcarding in game week 7, right, Trent's fixtures are Norwich, Burnley, Chelsea, Leeds, tough, Palace, Brentford, and then City.
Yeah.
So, like, I get it. I don't think Liverpool. I think that the defensive double up with Liverpool is too much. Especially, you know, I don't know what the centre back pairing is going to be. I mean, you saw Van Dijk in his first match giving the ball away. You know, he's going to take time to get up to speed. Gomez is as well, and they were so good at the way they complement each other. But I look at Trent and I just think Norwich and Burnley in the first 2. You talk about going down to like Veltman. there just isn't that potential there.
Okay, well, sure, Digne. You see what I mean? You still can create 2 million. My point is, I'm going with that. I'm just saying, if you wanted to be different and you can't find where you're going to get cash, you could chance that Liverpool aren't a defensive juggernaut in the first 6 weeks. I'm not going to do that, but you could do that.
But look at the defence anyway. You've already got, in this Twitter template, you've already got Shaw, you've already got Digne, and the other one was Robertson, but we put Fofana in there but to make the 100 million. So you've already got, as well as Trent, 3 quality defenders. What does that leave when you go back to the ticker? What defence offers you any kind of assurity that of any clean sheets?
This is the thing. It's picking who's going to be there. When I look at the list, when I stop it in 6 weeks and I look and is Trent right at the top? Okay, maybe he's not, but I'd want positions 2, 3, and 4 to have at least been predictable. Otherwise, this was pointless, right? It has to be people you think, and I've mentioned a few there. But really, Digne, Shaw, Veltman. I mean, outside of that, I'm not sure who would. It's just really to get that money to where you're going to use your transfers. That was the whole point. Like, you've got Buendia for 3 games, maybe, and then maybe you switch to Sarr, for example, and that's your transfer. That's less impactful than me for doing a Havertz to Son to whoever. Yeah. And if you really want Bruno, then I think maybe you could look at Trent, is what I'm saying, as your avenue to find these players. Yeah. Having all 3 is fine. I've decided no Bruno, but I just don't think I just want to challenge the auto pick, because 7.5 million is a lot of money for a team that haven't been a defensive juggernaut for a long time now, and he does need to get clean sheets to actually be that value. I think he's going to get assists no matter what.
But I would rather go without Bruno for 2 reasons. 1, it's more money, and 2, it's a midfield slot, and a midfield slot is where you can make the most impact, I think, with your transfers. You can't make impact with a replacement for Trent in the same way you can in midfield, because
unless you go down to the likes of Veltman, but then you're having a hell of a downgrade.
Yeah, you can create the money for the midfield, is what I'm saying. So not directly, but yeah. I mean, there might just be one of those seasons where we don't get many clean sheets at the beginning. I mean, I will say that I think fitness is an issue at the very start of the season. Obviously, teams get drilled into shapes, working with partners and stuff. And people say the hardest thing in football is to score a goal. Well, that's because everyone knows how to defend really well. Pressure, sit deep. They know exactly how to work as a unit, and those things take time to establish themselves.
Defences were awful last season at the start. Do you not remember? Goals were flying in, weren't they?
That's exactly what I'm saying. So you could maybe go for over the course of the season. Trent's going to be worth it. I have no doubt. But even last season, he was great. Game weeks 19 to 38. It was pretty tragic for the first 90 weeks. I mean, there's a chance it could happen again. Yeah. I won't be taking the chance myself, but it could happen.
So can I just mention, because you mentioned Dean and Shaw. I haven't got either of those in my drafts. Shaw isn't even someone that I've really considered. I know he's brilliant, but I still think he had his best ever season for United last year and didn't do that well FPL wise. I don't know how many assists I can't even remember. But it's not that impressive. His goals and assist record is Shaw for United. Bearing in mind he was lauded as the best left back in the league. I still am not entirely sure about his FPL credentials, and I'm probably going to get slammed for that. That's how I feel.
But he kind of transformed halfway through the season, didn't he? He didn't start strongly, but
he did, but he still didn't hit elite numbers of the likes of that we've seen.
I think there's a common theme here, and it's these players. He was really good, Shaw, to me, especially in the back end. His numbers were ridiculous. He takes some set pieces. There's no way he's not a good option for me. The thing is, they need to get the clean sheets to go along with it, and Man United didn't really get them in the back end. Now they've signed Varane, there's a good chance that we could bank on them being better, and they've got good fixtures. So I think that's where that comes from. He's potentially a sleeper. He's probably 0.5 cheaper than I would expect it to be based. So that's where I think people are going there for that reason. And this is it. You just need the message is you need those clean sheets, like City and Chelsea have been achieving, and they're worth that money. But then a lot of the time, their attacking assets are, as in their fullbacks and stuff, aren't necessarily nailed, so that's why we're dropping down. So again, I think we're talking about busting the template. The likes of Chilwell and Cancelo are just really interesting.
Yeah, we're going to talk about them in a minute. Yeah,
well, 5 assists for sure last season, 2,900 minutes. They played the majority of their games anyway. I mean, the player that I just wanted to mention, who's 5'5", the same as Dean and Shaw, that no one's got, is Creswell.
Creswell, yeah. So I've had him in a few drafts.
Yeah, so Soufal's up there. I think Soufal's 30% owned or something in the Twitter template. Creswell's at 2.8%.
Crazy.
He's just not been bad. 10 assists. 10 assists he got last season.
And why wouldn't it continue next season, right?
Well, exactly.
He started the season at wing back, and I don't think he's going to be in wing back. He's going to be the left-sided centre back, isn't he?
Even when he was left-sided centre back, though, his numbers were just as good as. In fact, they might have even been better when he was at
But
Leicester.
it's just set pieces
somehow. Yeah, it wasn't just the set pieces though. It was everything.
He takes free kicks.
Yeah,
he was an absolute man possessed, and yeah, I don't know, for 5.5. I mean, I like Soufal at 5. I think that's good pricing because that gives you an option between the two of them. But I genuinely prefer Creswell to either Dean or Shaw.
Do you?
So that's my one.
Yeah, he's swapped in for me a few times. He has swapped in for me a few times. I just want to see how West Ham start, really. I just think Dina, because there's no James Rodriguez, there's no Sigurdsson, he's going to be on all set plays, right? He's going to be on free kicks, and that's what gives him the edge. And for me, Shaw, I just think with Varane there, United's defence is better. So that's why I'm going for those two over Creswell at the moment. If I wasn't going Trent, I would go Creswell, yeah. He'd been our next in line for sure. Yeah, totally agree. Shall we start looking at some differentials? And I think we'll look at keepers quickly because I think it's a given that is there any point in going a differential keeper? Do we see any joy in that? I mean, Sanchez is obviously the template pick at the moment, and I think Martinez is the overall highest pick goalkeeper right now. I've had Martinez in a few drafts. I've had Sanchez. Sanchez is in my current one that I'm going to show tonight. The other player that has sneaked in is Meslier, and you mentioned him in there, Luke. I think he is probably, he's owned by 5.5%, but it doesn't really matter because your keeper, you don't pick a differential in goal because the impact of that is not going to be that great, is it? But what do you think about Meslier as an option?
I mean, there's a common theme behind these goalkeepers that just do ridiculously well from nowhere, and it's the fact that they make saves, and that's what I keep coming back to. Is Sanchez looks a very good pick because the fixtures are good and he'll probably get a few clean sheets, but I just worry about the saves, and Meslier I don't doubt for a second will have to continue to make a lot of saves. Obviously Martinez is now 5.5, he makes a lot of saves. Pope, I mean, these guys, they're expensive now because in the past they made a lot of saves and FPL has represented that price. With Meslier, I think there's probably still 0.5 to go. I think we could have a season where he ends up being 5.5 next.
Well, in minutes per BPS, he's the best out of all the keepers. He even betters Martinez, 4.1 minutes per BPS. So he earns BPS at a faster rate than any other keeper.
So it's just whether it's worth that 0.5 to start. I think that, again, if we're wildcarding quite early in 6 or 7, then maybe you can look at him afterwards because, yes, the theme is that these keepers get a lot of saves, but they also then end up having maybe like 10 to 12 clean sheets like Villa did as well, just to bump those numbers as well. You could say Leeds will probably get that. They managed it this season, and Villa did before. So is it worth 0.5? Will Sanchez get 10 to 12 clean sheets? Probably. Will he get the saves to go with it? I'm not so sure. But I feel like at wildcard we can kind of make that decision, and Sanchez is just an easy way to save the 0.5 to begin with because Leeds fixtures probably aren't good enough.
Yeah, no. I'll go with that. I mean, that's what I'm thinking at the moment. I don't want Sanchez long term, I don't think. I think Meslier is my keeper.
I probably don't either. No,
yeah. Where do you stand on this? Because you were looking at Henderson before, weren't you? I mean, what do you feel on him now?
Well, to answer your question, do I think there is an opportunity to differentiate teams here a bit? I think there probably is, because I don't think Sanchez is as good as a lot of people make out this.
As a Bayern fan,
I think he probably is the standout 4-5 because I think you're probably going for Bachmann. He's the other person. I do like the idea of Bachmann and Foster. It's always nice to have the goalkeeper and their backup. Just on the off chance. But I think the Sanchez Foster is quite by far. I mean, Bachmann's 17%. I'll keep going for these Twitter stats as we go.
No, it's good.
I did the work.
Yeah, might as well get the most out. Yeah.
So 17% for Bachmann. Want to have a guess on Martinez?
42.
Jesus.
Way less.
What is this overall in the game or Twitter?
25.
This is Twitter.
Oh, Twitter. Oh, yeah. Okay. Maybe less
Twitter.
than 20. Less than 20. 18. 9%. Oh, wow.
9%. So
that's interesting, isn't it?
Really low. So I mean, Sanchez is like 77% owned. So the backing he's got is unbelievable. I'm seeing quite a few people with the double up as well. So Sanchez and Veltman or Sanchez and Dunk. He's appearing in quite a few. I think that's too much. I think you could go for Bachmann and then go for the likes of Veltman, because the trouble with Brighton as well is we're having a lot of disruption defensively. Lamptey's out, White's gone, Dunk's had a toe surgery or a toe injury.
There's always drama around Brighton.
There's always there's always drama, and anytime we look like we're a team to invest in, it's probably wise to do the opposite. And promoted goalkeepers I do quite like, because they're going to make a lot of saves. Watford have got a good early run, and I think Bachmann could be the way to go if you wanted someone to take a punt on Sanchez. Henderson, I think, has got COVID or has got He's out of training, but he looks like he's going to be United's number one. I think he could be a real factor on the wild cards we play.
It's just United slot though, isn't it? That's the thing. Like you can't guarantee you're not going to want 3 United attackers at any one time in a season.
And to be fair to him, he did make quite a few saves for United. But then you think with the Varane, will that continue? Maybe not. Maybe that'll dip. And then the other thing I'll add to that is with Sanchez is like the Brighton defenders are capable of bonus, Dunk especially, and they're good passers of the ball. I know that passing can help the goalkeeper as well occasionally, but you look at like the Watford team and you think, are any of their defenders going to be passing the ball out like that? I feel like the goalkeeper is more going to be the area where the bonus points would go in their defence compared to Brighton. I completely agree. I don't
think Sanchez has the potential to regularly hit double-digit hauls.
No, I don't think he's got the chance to be a Martinez or a Pope.
I always look at players like Meslier or Martinez as the ones who, when Watford win 1-0, Bachmann's probably made 13 saves. That just tends to be what happens, which is why I do historically quite like them.
Well, it's just goalkeepers with defenders who hoof the ball, basically, rather than are usually pretty good. Hence Pope. I mean, and Aston Villa,
the perfect example.
Yeah, and Martinez you could add as well to that. I mean, Villa defence didn't really pass the ball out, and there he is. Meslier is probably a bit of an exception because Leeds do that. But then, we had the issue with Dallas playing in midfield, and I don't know, Bamford obviously hogs a lot of the points as well, so maybe they're a unique case. But yeah, Meslier looks the best differential to me on that list.
The Twitter template could fall down after 3 game weeks if Martinez keeps 3 clean sheets in the opening first 3 games, and 9% have got him, and no one's covered that with any Villa defenders. Like, we could all be sat here being like,
well, this is it.
This is carrying on from where he was, and
this is why I had Martinez in there, because I think, well, I'm going to change it on the wild card. He's not my long-term keeper, but for the first 3 games, he could get 2 or 3 double-figure hauls, couldn't he? That sounds stupid, but he could.
Don't say this.
Well, I've been stung with him before.
Keepers never worry you, do they? The only keepers that have ever historically worried me have been Pope and now Martinez.
Yeah. I do look at those fixtures because I do think Smith will play cagey. If Grealish goes, I might well go back to Martinez, because I do think that Villa will be a different team for the opening few weeks without Grealish. I think they'll be less cavalier, much more kind of pragmatic, and they won't concede many goals. Whereas with Grealish, they'll be a bit more open, I think.
I suppose that, but I also think that Aston Villa just outright overperformed in the first half of the season, and therefore there was just maybe just a little bit of regression on Villa as well. It might not just be down to Jack Grealish himself. I mean, in part it will be, but I feel like they did overperformed. I mean, their team expected conceded data was not good for most of the season, to be honest, and that's why I suppose Martinez is so high, because he just made them keep clean sheets with ridiculous amounts of godlike performances. And how long can that continue? Maybe it can, but for 5.5 million, I'm not sure I'm prepared to take the risk, take the punt on it to begin with.
It's a good price. It's a good price for him. It had to be 5.5.
Yeah, I think it is. It makes you think about it, doesn't it? But even without Bruno, you can't afford to go Martinez then, Luke.
Well, I could do. Yes, I've got loads of money in the bank. I could do it. I just choose not to right now. I mean, I'm on the Watford keeper at the moment. It's him or Sanchez. Like I say, I just think if I'm only looking at the first 6 weeks as a block, Watford's fixtures aren't that much worse than Brighton if you stretch it out to 6, and I think that he'll get more saves. So and it's just a little bit different. You know what I'm like. So I feel like he could do as well as Sanchez, and I'm just going to ignore everyone expensive, because I always do. I mean, I never go above 4.5. I've never done it before, and it would take something massive to make me do it, to be honest. Henderson is probably, and Meslier are probably the only 2 that slightly tempt me, but even then I just think there's plenty of times during the season where I'll wish I had that 0.5. It always happens. I wish I had the money, and it just gives you more flexibility.
The other thing about keepers is they don't go up in value quickly either, right? So if you if Meslier does start well, Martinez does start well, you have got time, unlike in midfield and strikers. If Watkins does bang goals and I don't have him, I've got to move quick.
Who's making goalkeeper subs earlier? I mean, surely
unless they're a 4-5 though. The 4-5s, if you don't go for Sanchez, for example, and he gets a couple of clean sheets, I wouldn't be surprised to see 4-7, 4-8. After 3 weeks,
I guess so, and I guess people will get off Martinez if they do concede in the first couple, because they've got tough fixtures, right?
The people with the expensive keepers as well, like Alisson.
I think that's more likely that Martinez comes down in price.
Yeah. Well, the 4-5's going up after a big haul.
Defenders, again, I mean, not an area I normally target for explosive differentials, but there are some, and I've highlighted a couple here that we've already mentioned, which is Chilwell and Cancelo, who, I mean, this table, just to explain, is effectively all players with under less than 15% ownership, ranked by minutes per point. So these are the players who are currently you could class as differentials in defence. And Chilwell and Cancelo are in the top 5 for minutes per point last season, 16.4 minutes per point for Chilwell, Cancelo 16.7, and they've both been in our squads, right? I mean, they've been in mine, and I think Cancelo's still in yours, Luke, right?
Cancelo and Chilwell have been in it for most of pre-season. The draft I sent you today doesn't have either of those two people in them because I've just been messing around. But I still don't know. The problem is just going with too many of them. You know, if you go with Cancelo, Chilwell, Mahrez, Havertz, when you start getting a lot of these players where there is a slight element of doubt around their game time, that's probably too many to have in your team. Like, even I can recognise that, and therefore I need to have a really strong bench if that's the case. And maybe you need to limit the amount. And right now I'm just all in on Mahrez. I just think he's a fantastic pick to begin with, and I'd like to add one of those two to it. I think Chilwell, you can wait on it. The thing with Chilwell is he's not back in training yet, as far as I know. So if it had been that he's in training and he's playing, and then I wouldn't have any doubts around him. I think he's well ahead of Alonso. I think the rotation there is probably over-egged a little bit. I think that was to do with being in the Champions League and stuff more towards the end. And I just think he's far superior. I mean, surely Tuchel, who likes to can see that Alonso can't defend for love nor money.
Well, Alonso's being offered to everyone.
Yeah.
They're trying to get him in this Lukaku deal, aren't they?
Yeah, I think Chilwell...
He's not. I don't think he's a factor.
I mean, he's another one, for example. He's 1.5 million less than Trent. Could he get close to Trent? Because he's going to be hitting 18 clean sheets and maybe gets... I think he can. I think he's a great pick. And I will have him in my team. I'm almost certain a wild card. I mean, at 6. And it's whether I go with him before that or not is more down to the fact that he's not in training. If you told me right now he's in training, he's playing, then I'd probably just put him straight in there, to be honest.
He's in my team that I'm showing later because I recently moved things. Because it would be James, but James looks though again he's going to be playing right-sided centre back with Azpilicueta out on the wing back.
He just doesn't seem to like him at right. The thing is, he was given a few opportunities at right wing back, and aside from one Champions League performance, he didn't really offer that much offensively to me when I watched them play. And I know he's got more than that. I know he just didn't seem to show it, and I think that Tuchel he came out and said he sees him as a right centre back. I'm pretty sure.
I still think that's crazy because his delivery is incredible. Right.
Yeah, they're looking to sign a right-sided centre back, aren't they? So maybe they push him back out. Say. But Azpilicueta he just doesn't go away, does he? The guy's just a machine. I mean, even for Spain, he's turning up again. He's just. Yeah, I mean, what do you do about that guy? He's just so good when he plays.
So, as you got Cancelo, right?
I've got Cancelo, yeah, and I got Cancelo because of doing this research last night. Because Cancelo's in 2% of teams.
He's so good. He's so good.
And City are the best defensive team in the league. I think he's maybe got the most potential. Doesn't show it often enough, but I still think his stats and his numbers. I beat the same drum. I still think he's first choice right back. I still think he's first choice left back. I think his security of starts is way up there. And I saw that 2%. I just thought that is crazy low. They've got Norwich at home.
Yeah, let's look at their fixtures. It's the anxiety of both Chilwell and Cancelo, right? I think of the two, I think Chilwell is more secure in his starts. So you got Zinchenko and you got Walker, right, and Mendy, and there's no doubt that there is the rotation threat there. And my fear is Cancelo will turn up at Spurs and then it'll be Zinchenko at home to Norwich. And so it'd be the games you want Cancelo for would be the ones that he gets rotated out.
I think I'm less worried than you are, because I just think the system Pep plays, Cancelo's ability to drift into midfield, is no one else can do that. And he can do that from either side. He's a better player than Walker. He's a better player than Zinchenko.
Yeah, I don't argue with that.
Yeah, I mean, his form, the worry for me could be his form towards the end of last season did dip, and he almost did lose a bit of faith in from Pep, I think. But the other good thing about Cancelo is I do like that 6 million price point, and this is another reason why I'm looking to move away from Dean and Shaw, because I think that is a good. The 5.5 is a good price point, don't get me wrong, but at 6 as well, I think with Chilwell and Cancelo there, they are two players that could hit the, I think Luke's right, they could hit the Trent levels and be the top scoring defenders in the game, and I'd like to have that ability to move between Cancelo and Chilwell.
I think what is unique about these defenders, the ones we're all talking about, Shaw, Dina, Cancelo, Chilwell, is you can look at a 4-5 defender in that team, or a 5 million defender in that team. Take Silva for Chelsea, right? You know that Silva's going to get the clean sheets for Chelsea if he was ever present. Chilwell gets the same number of clean sheets, but it's the attacking returns, right? So there's almost some certainty on the number of points that Chilwell can beat Silva by, right? Because we know Chilwell's probably going to get, 6 or 7 assists, 2 or 3 goals. So you're looking at, 30, 40 points above a vanilla defender in that same team. So for that 1.5 difference or 1 million difference, you know you're going to get roughly 30, 40 points. You look at other positions and you go, well, what's the difference between a 7-5 midfielder and a 6-5 midfielder? Well, it might be that the 6-5 midfielder outscores the 7-5 one. You just don't know. Look at Harrison last season.
It's just much harder to predict.
It is, yes. So when you're looking at these expensive defenders, you kind of know you're going to get an extra 30, 40 points on the Zumars and the Silvers, right, by going Chilwell. And that makes you feel good about spending the extra million, because you're not guaranteed, but you feel more secure in that investment, and that's the difference.
There's also the fact that you can just leave these guys in all season. You're probably not even going to take them out when they have tough fixtures necessarily. Like, you can leave a lot of these guys in.
And this is the other thing, Luke, because last time Mark and I were talking about defensive, fixtures and things like that, and the research we showed was that the fixtures make less of a difference for the defence, and it's more about the quality of the team.
I mean, when Chelsea rock up against City, for example, in their opening 6, they play City, don't they? I mean, could they get a clean sheet in that game?
How many times you see a 0-0 or a low-scoring game in that? I mean, Diaz is the other one. So Diaz is 9%. 9% owned. So if you're looking for, if you're worried about Cancelo's minutes, then he's the same price. You could go for him.
But there's no attacking returns, really, is there? That's the thing.
No, but I mean, there should be, right? There should be with Mahrez and De Bruyne whipping the balls. Again, I still think there's that potential there for him to be on the end of these things. It's just hard to predict with
I mean, Stones and Diaz showed that it will happen. They'll get the delivery's that good, and they get that many free. I mean, if they got Jack Grealish in their team, they're going to be getting free kicks every 5 seconds.
That's very true. Well, not with the new rules, though. Grealish doesn't get as many free kicks.
Jack will still get them. You watch. Then I think that there's still an argument to go Diaz. I just think Cancelo's, the potential there is just massive. I mean, at home to Norwich, if he starts that game, do you need Walker at home to Norwich even if he's fit? I mean, I prefer Cancelo at right back a lot. That's my main issue. If he's forced to play left back, I don't think he's quite as effective. But at right back, home to Norwich, I mean, it's easily got 20-point material all over it. It's got ridiculous.
Him and Mahrez complement each other perfectly on that side.
Yeah, so it's just whether Pep agrees or not. That's the
well, this is it. That's always a problem.
We find it, because I want to go Mahrez as well, but I don't think I want to go to City and put myself completely in Pep's
dilemma,
lap, basically. It's scary, isn't it?
It is scary,
that's the problem. Right, let's look at midfield, because actually, there's another screen of defenders here. These are defenders that ranked outside the minutes per point top 30. Is there any there that leap out for you? I mean, it's interesting. Nori's a player that's been discussed a lot because of the attacking role. No, you're not going to go there at all.
I mean, he was not. I know he's young, but he wasn't particularly good the first season. Wolves, the manager, by all accounts, is just incredibly offensive. I mean, to me, Wolves have got all the mere markings of being tragic for the first few weeks. They're getting the defence to push right up. Their centre backs are all injured. I don't think Cody can really play as a 2. I mean, Nori might. I mean, he's not going to play in attacking positions when they've got all their players back. No chance for me.
What about Tierney?
Can I just say about Ainori quickly?
Yeah, go on.
He's someone that I see on Twitter a lot, and he's exactly the kind of player who's going to score game week 1, and you're going to see a million people posting about how they've got him. I can just see it so clearly in my mind.
The Roman Saiss, who did it last time, I think it was. Yeah.
Exactly. He's playing left wing. That's why people are being brought in.
Yeah,
I mean, he'll get a few assists, but do you back him for clean sheets? I don't know. And there's still 15, Marcel there. I think Marcel's still competing with him at left back. Yeah. So this is a flat no.
15% overall on Twitter. So when Nori does go mad and you see a million people post him, just know it's only probably around 15% of Twitter that had him.
So what about Tierney, though? Tierney's the one who I think you could get in my team over the season on this list.
Yeah, at 5.
I love him. He's just so injury prone, isn't he? Bless him. I mean, even for Scotland, he seemed to pick up a niggle again in the Euros, and I think he's a really good option. But when you've got Ben White at 4.5, he might just eat up bonus the same as Holding did when he was there. I mean, you're really asking him to get a lot of assists and basically play a lot of games. I don't want to have to be transferring in and out 5 million defenders. This is the whole thing why we go for, either the dirt cheap or then we leave the premium ones in. And then when you start messing around making transfers in the 5 million area for defenders who are going to get injured, you're just wasting transfers. So if you could promise me now he's going to stay fit, I think it's a very enticing price, because Arsenal's defensive data look good. But
Just when you think Arsenal are like evolving a bit, and Smith Rowe new contract, and all bringing Abraham and all this stuff, then they give Xhaka a new contract.
Well, Partey just got
that's the injury to Partey, right?
Yeah, and they don't really have a DM properly, do they? I know Xhaka can play, but he doesn't really make the tackle. I don't know. I like him, but I just worry that he can't stay fit. Is the bottom line.
And Doty under Nuno again.
I'd prefer Reguilon.
Yeah.
If I was going to pick one at the same price at 5, I think 5's got a good price for either of them if they start at wing back, but he's done nothing at Spurs to make me consider. But at least Reguilon's had a couple of good games.
Well, Spurs are apparently today signing a centre back.
Yeah,
did you see? Yeah. I don't doubt that he will make Spurs efficient or effective, I should say, because he did that with Wolves, right? They were pretty bad on the eye, but they would still get clean sheets, and they would still get. And then for FPL, their strikers were great. Like Jimenez would get bonus when he scored, and I think there'll be a similar thing. I think he will shore them up a bit. I think Son will be great, and the defence might be okay, but I don't really want to pay 5 million to find out early doors from Doherty, especially when Aurier's still there. And I think Aurier's a useful player as well. I know he's got his issues. And City first game. Yeah, we're
not going there yet, but it'd be interesting if Doherty does come onto the radar later in the season. So none of those yet, but Cancelo Chilwell definitely in our thinking for game week 1 by the sounds of it. Midfield, this is where it's at. I mean, I've highlighted all the players here that I think could be impactful differentials, right, for our initial lineups, and there's a lot. And this is my point about starting with 5 in midfield, and that's why I'm keen to do it, because I want to give myself as much flexibility and funds in that area so I can react, because I do think that's where the bandwagons will be early on. There'll be a cheap midfielder who will do something first game week or first couple of game weeks, and that'll be the bandwagon. And if you're only playing 4 in midfield and your money's elsewhere, it's harder to react, is my theory, right? Out of these players, Jota, we've already spoken about, has got to be considered for the 3rd Liverpool slot. Foden, Gundogan, Mahrez, all for City at the top here. And again, just to underline, this is less than 15% ownership, minutes per point, top 30 of those players with less than 15% ownership. And Foden's out on top, 11.9 minutes per point. Incredible record when he plays. Jota 12.9, Gundogan 12.9, and Mahrez fourth on 13.4. For me, it's Mahrez. For you, it's Gundogan, right, Az?
Yeah, it's Gundogan unless I get any signs that Torres is going to play in that false 9. So if they don't sign Kane, I mean, Grealish is interesting. I don't know how Grealish is going to impact any of their attacking assets, really, because there's some rumours going around that they see Grealish as an 8, which he's never really played before, and Southgate didn't want to play him there. He's much favoured Mount. So if he plays there, then that's Gundogan's spot, I think, that could be risky. I still think Gundogan offers them that bursting into the box, that timing, was that kind of Souček type attacking that they don't really have anywhere else. So I still think he's a good option, but there's a little bit of a risk around there. Torres, I just think, is class. I just think he's a great player, and I think if they don't sign Kane, I think they could stick Torres up top, and he'd do a great job. He's a hell of a lot better than playing Sterling there, for example. They could play De Bruyne there, but then they lose the creativity in the middle. They could play Gundogan there. I mean, if Gundogan's at false 9, I think he's a great option. So yeah, it's just that one of, I want to see how they line up. I want to see that game week 1, game week 2, but I am very tempted to leave money in the bank so that I can move to one of these guys for the Norwich game. Because if Torres starts false 9, for example, against Spurs and plays well, and we think he's going to play up front in that Norwich game, that could be one of these transfers that you're talking about of wanting to move on to, tap into that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of doing the same, leaving some money in the bank to react and giving myself that flexibility to spend that money anywhere around the team. Probably either to upgrade the 3rd striker to a 6.5 or upgrade one of my mid-price to a heavy midfielder. I mean, Luke...
And I'd rather hammer nails into my hands than go for Mahrez again.
Right. You're really against it, aren't you? I mean, Luke and I are both going to show him in our teams in a moment. He started again and scored, yeah.
I don't care if he scores a hat-trick every game.
Has he started every pre-season?
Gundogan got 2, by the way, just to let you know, Az.
Yeah, he's started too many games. He's knackered now.
He's tired.
He won't start game week 1.
He will start game week. He will start game week 1. It's whether he starts the Norwich game is the worry, right? Because I want to start the season with him because I do think he's a strong differential. You could get double figures, right? Even against Spurs. I mean, Spurs are what kind of state they're going to be in when City go there. I think Mahrez can hurt them. It's that Norwich game, though, because I know what's going to happen. Mahrez will get something in the first game. I'll be rubbing my hands and he'll get benched for the Norwich game. Yeah, I know.
The issue with Grealish as well is if Grealish is at 8, that takes Foden out of that position where he sometimes plays. So Foden and Mahrez are going to be fighting for the right.
Yeah, he sees Foden up front, doesn't he? I think
Foden plays on the right or left.
Yeah, he rarely plays on the left. I'd say.
He has done.
I don't know, with Torres there, with Sterling there, with Grealish that can play on the left.
Oh, they've got a lot of... the thing that strikes out to me on that list is basically all of those players near the top are from the top teams. They're players that are... these are the best teams in the league, the best attack, they offer you the best chance, but obviously it's their minutes that's slightly in doubt. So this is where I think there is an edge if you can predict that their minutes may change, and that's part of the skill to me, because it doesn't just stay the same. And this is why even when you look through the transfer algorithms that people have got, all these maths models that we have and stuff, they're all based on their previous minutes. Now, they don't stay the same forever. Players do develop, tactics change, things happen. So there is an edge to be gained here if you can predict it. I know people say that's crazy, you can predict Pep, but there are other players in that list. Like Mark, you said maybe Firmino's not back in training, so Jota starts. So why do I want to chance him for a few days? Greenwood's down that list there, the same reasons I've mentioned there. I mean, he might be starting for Man United for 2 or 3. So these guys have massive potential. Barnes is another one there. They have massive potential. So if you think their minutes are going to increase, I don't see why you wouldn't give them
Mahrez's biggest problem for me is the lack of versatility, because we talk about the likes of Torres and Sterling and Grealish and Gundogan. These guys can all play in 3 or 4 different positions. Mahrez can only play on the right. And that to me is his biggest problem at City.
But he is the best player in that position for them, I think.
Yeah, I think Pep likes him out there.
Yeah, he kind of showed it towards the back end of last season.
But he's shown historically over the last 2-3 seasons that he doesn't.
No one's sitting here and doubting that Mahrez might not play versus Norwich as. I just think that when the situation is at the moment that no one else has even returned to training, he has the best chance to play that game.
Absolutely.
So I'm willing to take the gamble. That's as simple as it comes down to. Because if he doesn't play, we've just talked about, look how much value there is everywhere. I might have a Veltman come in for 4.5 million and Brighton could keep a clean sheet quite easily in that game. The worst case scenario is he gets 2 minutes. I mean, because if he gets 30 minutes, he could haul.
I totally agree with you, because the beauty of this situation is we can build a squad with that in mind. So we can build a squad with the risk of Mahrez not playing. Yeah, exactly. Right. You can't do that elsewhere in the season. When you bring Mahrez in mid-season, you might not have a bench that can stand him being dropped. Now we can sit and go, right, I'm going to plan my team to have a couple of players like Jota or Mahrez, and make sure that if they don't turn up, or if they only come off the bench, I've got the players on the bench to come on. Or to make sure you've got the transfers there and the flexibility to move off them quickly. Whereas in mid-season, it's much harder, right? You can't... To do a course change for Mahrez is harder, right? Or Mahrez is harder.
Well, also his competition will be back and stuff like that as well for these players. And right now, you can kind of make a semi-educated guess on it. I mean, you can see the numbers. I just think we do a podcast. We do a podcast called BlackBox where we have to learn from mistakes. And he's probably the biggest mistake I've ever made playing FPL.
So you just can't do it.
But surely the mistake is to not be flexible enough to think that is just that, and therefore Mahrez is just a no.
That could be a new mistake, Luke, and then that's another episode. Come on, we need to keep churning out the content.
Things do change occasionally. I mean, do you think Foden's just not going to become a permanent player for City in the future at some point? The guy's ridiculously good. He might be not this season, but he will at some point, surely. He's that good. There's Pepe's in there for Arsenal, I can see. I actually, at the moment, with the team I'm going to post, I know it's dangerous to pre-plan moves, but I'm probably going to bring Pepe in for one game or so in my little rotation of midfield if everything goes to plan. I think it's versus Norwich, I think it is, where it comes in. So yeah, I like having that flexibility in this role like Mark does, and that's why I'm lining up rather than that kind of dead team approach that I see everyone going for at the moment. Yeah,
I just think that the start of the season is an opportunity where you can structure your team to take a few risks, right? And I did it last season, it didn't come off. I took a risk on Pulisic, awful decision. I went with Werner against my bet. I did exactly
the same, so there we go. We're probably both going down this route
again, and it was a mistake, but I recovered from it. I got a bad start, but I recovered from it, so it's not the end of the world.
You
did 3 years in a row I've tried to be different.
But wild cards and the start of the season is the only time really you can build your squad around taking a few risks and mitigate against the risks. And I would argue that in midfield, there are such a good number of players like Jota, Mahrez, Pepe, De Bruyne, who could offer big scores in the opening 2 or 3 game weeks, who might not be long-term picks. I might not keep Mahrez beyond game week 2 or 3, but for the first 2 game weeks, he could get 2 double-figure returns, right? He's that kind of player, and he's certainly getting enough pre-season. I think it's worth going in for that rather than going, I'm just going to go Bruno because I fear the ownership and he might get a penalty, in my opinion.
I agree. And Havertz fits that role as well.
Yeah. I don't agree that you just go for Fernandes because you fear he'll get a high score. I'm going for Fernandes because he was the top scoring player in the game last season. He got at least an assist in over half the matches he played, and he's playing in the United team, which has strengthened their attack. And
but he hasn't had
a better team.
How much pre-season has he had so far? He hasn't had any yet. We haven't seen him yet. So, and he didn't play in the Euros because he wasn't good enough to get in the Portugal team, and he had a terrible end to the season for United. Really.
So there is absolutely no way that Fernandes won't line up against Leeds in game week 1.
No, but you can't say that Fernandes played well for the tail end of the season. He didn't play well, and he wasn't effective in FPL terms.
No, but
he turned it round at the end.
But they're a stronger team now.
They are a stronger team now, but what is Sancho going to do to United? He's going to improve them, but it disrupts it completely, right? So
he could take points away from him.
Yeah, we don't know. All I'm saying is 12 million is a big investment in something like that when... If there wasn't opportunities, if there wasn't a Havertz, Jota, De Bruyne, Gundogan, Mahrez, if these players weren't around, I would go Bruno and play safe. But I just think there is an opportunity, and we don't have many opportunities in the season to take a fairly safe risk, right? Most of the time, if you take a risk with a captaincy or a transfer, you're going to pay if you get it wrong. There is the opportunity with your initial squad where you can absorb that risk a little bit by having a good first sub or even two good first subs.
Are both of your strategies to captain Salah every game? That's my question.
What's that, sorry?
Oh, go on, Luke. You go.
I was going to say, I don't think Bruno's a bad pick, by the way.
No, nor do I. No.
I think he's a fine pick, and I may still even just think, well, you know what, I'm not going to be clever, I'll just have him. Just put that out there.
My problem isn't that saying that you both think that. My problem was Mark saying that you're just picking him because of ownership. Like, I'm picking him because I think he's a good pick. And because
but some people will pick him because of ownership.
But we don't like them, Mark. They're dead to me anyway.
I'm not saying that's you, but I'm saying there's people out there who go, I can't not have him because everyone will have him, and... That's the
problem was that I built a team. The team I showed last week was a team without Bruno, and I went for Sancho instead. And then I put Bruno in, and I just didn't feel like I was that much weakened elsewhere. And I had Bruno instead of Sancho, and not Sancho coming from the Bundesliga. I've just got that fear again that
I don't think you can start with Sancho because he's not even, as far as we know, he's in training.
He's not even fit, but yeah.
But
I don't know.
My problem is getting off Bruno. Once you have Bruno, how easy is it going to be to go, he's only got 1 assist in the first 3 games, and Mahrez has just got 2 goals in 2 back-to-back goals. I'm going to sell Bruno and get Mahrez. You're never going to do that.
Yeah, but we talked about it, isn't it? That's kind of a psychological thing. Like, if it's the right move to make, then you have to put that to one side and do it. Like,
tough, isn't it?
It is very tough. I mean, it would be very tough to go into, if Mahrez gets back-to-back hat-tricks and swap Fernandes out for him anyway, because you never know if Mahrez is going to play. But at the same time, you have to weigh up game by game and go from there. So, yeah.
I just think, let's say Bruno goes crazy at the start, right? He's ridiculous. I personally am now almost committed to this. If I do go down this route, if I wouldn't then react and then just get Bruno, I would still maintain that across the season he wouldn't be worth 12 million because I won't be captaining that much because I'll have Salah and I'm going to captain him more often.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I won't sit here and, I'll see Twitter and everyone going, Bruno doubters all over the place. At the end of the day, I'll hope that I can make up those points elsewhere and my captain of Salah over the course of the season will be a better decision because ultimately his data isn't as good as some of the top guys. It was buffed by penalties a lot. And I am just of the opinion, now with this extra news, that the penalties will dip a little bit. I don't doubt that he's a decent option. I'm just not 100% convinced he's a 12 million player. And that's where it comes from. And I want to have that flexibility. I don't want to have Bruno and then just leave him for the whole team.
I think he is a 12 million player when he's the player he started last. For the first half of last season, he's a 12 million player. For the second half of last season, he wasn't. So that's and it's just because I look at the early fixtures and I see Havertz game week 1.
I'd have Mane over him. I mean, it's only the captain's thing. I just said about Wolves being tragic. My biggest worry is against Wolves that he'll go ham. He'll smash them up,
and that's my point, right? So we've historically always needed 2 premium players really to choose between captains, because if you don't go for Fernandes and Salah and you're going for someone cheap, okay, Son maybe is in that bracket, but if you don't go for that and you spread your funds around, in game week 3 Salah's got Chelsea.
Yeah, I'm going to get Son,
and I'll have Son as well. Yeah.
So you're going to go for Son against.
That's what I'm just trying to do.
Yeah. I'll have him as well.
Game week 4, Salah versus Leeds. Fernandes with Newcastle at home.
Oh, I'd still take Salah, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'd take Salah as well if I don't have another option.
Fair enough, but you've got options, right? With
Yeah,
the
no,
two.
I get it. Yeah, you've got... Sometimes, though, having options for captaincy isn't that great. Sometimes it gives you problems, right? So, yeah, I mean, we'll look at the captain matrix next week, right, in the episode, and we'll look then, and everything's going to change. I'm just saying now that I don't trust myself, if I get Bruno, to come off him if I see him starting the way he ended the season, as in not contributing enough for his 12 million fee. And there's no doubt he wasn't doing that at the end of the season. He had the double game week, which obviously it hurt us where he performed, but that was because of the penalty at Villa where and that won't be given, apparently. So, you know, if he starts the way he started last season, yeah, I'll have to get him in, but I don't know if he will. Because, I mean, we haven't, like I say, he hasn't had a pre-season and he didn't play in the Euros very much, so we didn't see a lot of him then. So I don't know.
If you ignore captaincy, which is tough to do, I agree, then you put Mane against Bruno. I much prefer Mane for the first 6 games over Bruno. Personally, he's in the forward line, and his data was better. Like overall,
if Mane starts every game, but then Mane starts isn't assured, right? Because
I suppose there's that, but I would have put him down to probably start all the games. But maybe there's something in that. But yeah, it's the captaincy at the end of the day. But do we completely reconstruct our entire teams and what we want to do on our ethos off of the basis of, like, I'm just not going to captain Salah versus Chelsea? I mean, Salah could quite easily just be a decent captain versus Chelsea and score. I mean, it's not out of this world crazy. Do you know what I mean? Just structuring completely around captains all the time maybe isn't always the play. And sometimes you say you want to captain a premium. Well, some of these guys, they've been priced by some bloke sat in FPL Towers who doesn't know what he's doing in a lot of situations, it looks like to me, because he's got some of these drastically wrong. But do you know what I mean? There's nothing to say that Havertz next season isn't priced up as a 10 million striker. Do you know what I mean? After a fantastic season playing up front. I mean, he could just be...
Okay.
He could just be priced wrong.
I want to talk about Havertz, right? Because I know your favourite subject, Az. So FBL and Moore did a graphic, and then he did a tailored version just for us, Az, to show how Havertz grew under Tuchel, and it's really surprised me. So, you know, his FBL points weren't up that much, 50 versus 41.
I was going to say, wow. Look
I know, but it was
41 to 50.
I know, but it's the underlying stats, and it gets better in a minute. But thanks very much for that graph. This was what prompted me to look into that, and then I looked at the stats underneath it, and this is Tuchel in the second half. The heat map you can see under Lampard, he was stuck out in the flank for the bulk of the time. Under Tuchel, wandered around, played central areas. The shots at the bottom there's a shot map. You can see shots in the box far greater. He carried far greater goal threat. This is the data that really made me take notice, though. This is since game week 20. This is when Tuchel came in. This is all players, strikers and midfielders, minutes per non-penalty expected goal involvement. Havertz was second to Martinelli overall. So he was ahead of Kane. He was ahead of Salah. So he was completely transformed into a player who could be a heavy hitter under Tuchel if he plays that role. Now, obviously, the Lukaku business could change everything, but if Lukaku doesn't come in and Chelsea start without that striker, Havertz has surely got to be considered, no? I'll go to you first, Az. Come on.
Setting me up here. No, I mean, I've always thought he's a classy player. You know,
You've always said.
I've always said the Sunday League comments were about his performances. I always backed him to start delivering for Chelsea. You were the one actually, Mark, who said that he was going to end up getting sold to Turkey or somewhere.
I said if he didn't have a good second season, him and Werner could be sold. I still think Werner could be, but Havertz.
I think you implied that you couldn't see it. Was what I remember. Anyway, this isn't.
No, I agree. Deflecting.
I still doubt Havertz's ability to I've said it before. I still doubt his ability to hit 200-point season. Does he need to hit a 200-point season at 8.5? He needs to be hitting around 170, 180 points, I think, to be considered a top-level asset for the money. These numbers are good. I think if he plays at false 9, he's obviously a great option. I think any player playing at false 9 is, especially for a team like Chelsea. Do I think Chelsea under Tuchel are a team that can go out and get 3 or 4 goals regularly? No, because I think he prioritises solidity. The fixture run's difficult at the start. I think it's just an obvious wait and see for me. Especially with the transfer rumbling on and then wanting a striker.
I just look at him and go, at the moment when you see my team, I've got too many risks in there and it is going to change. But Havertz, Jota, Mahrez are all in my team at the moment. I won't have all 3. but I like Havertz, like I do Mahrez for the opening game, right? And I think that against Palace at home, if he's playing the false nine, he's looking good in pre-season. He's going to start that game. I think he's going to start in the false nine if they don't get Lukaku, or even if they do. I think he's a great differential again. And if you're not going Bruno, your money could go on Havertz and Mahrez, and you could have two players for the first couple of games who look really strong. Luke, where are you on Havertz?
One team with Havertz out of the 75.
Yeah, that's incredible. I couldn't believe that, because I've seen some Twitter talk on Havertz, but clearly it hasn't set fire.
I swear it takes Twitter ages. I literally put Havertz and Mahrez straight in my first draft, to be honest. Havertz, if he's playing up front for Chelsea, I mean, you did research last time to say that the attacks of these top teams and stuff against like other players, they don't go down too much. Like, who else is going to score the goals for Chelsea when you look at their team? I'm not even sure who would even score them. I mean, it's basically going to be him or Werner, isn't it, that are going to score the goals?
They won't get many, that's what I think.
Well, it doesn't matter if he's getting. I mean, do the Jimenez then, won't he? He'll get one goal and max bonus or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't really matter. And he's a midfielder.
He's a midfielder, yeah.
He's going to get the clean sheet point half of the season for a start to fall back on. He might not play every single game, but at the moment, I don't see why they wouldn't start him or play him. He's starting in the friendlies, and he's clearly their best, striker that they have at the moment. If they're not going to play Tammy, so. He's straight in, no questions asked for me. I might take him out as part of, I already said about maybe moving to Pepe and Son. I think I might start with him and even move straight to Son. That's an option I've got, and I'm probably going to do, just to avoid some of the tougher fixtures. But come wildcard game week 7, I've got no doubt he'll be on my team as it stands at the moment. And I think he could do fine in those tough games, because even though they're really tough, Chelsea are probably favourites to win in the bookies' odds for most of them.
Yeah, and we saw we saw Man City in the last 8. They were 16th on the ticker, and they still ranked 4th overall for those 8 games. So the class teams find a way against tougher opposition anyway, right? So that's something we did take from that study. So we can't write off Chelsea's attack, even though the fixtures are bad. And I think Havertz, this data shows that when he plays, he's in the top bracket. It's just, is he going to play that role? I mean, they're clearly looking for a striker. So much depends on how the market goes. But I think he's going to start in that role against Palace, because even if Lukaku comes next week, he's not going to start the opening game, I wouldn't have thought. So he's an interesting one. It's a wait and see, but then is the right tactic to go with the template and wait and see, or take a risk with a couple of these and try and get ahead? That's the debate.
8-5 that's a big risk though. That's not like
I think either option is totally fine.
7-5s.
I think you either wait and you get him, and I can see arguments for both sides. But I think both people probably agree that from game week 7 they'll probably be looking in. I mean,
yeah.
So now it's just like, can I do more for that money right now? And I can't really see another option that's as good as him. And that's it around that price. The way my structure is, I think he's great.
Apart from Grealish, I mean, Grealish is in a lot of teams, right? And 8 million.
I mean, if you told me Grealish is going to start for City, I mean, I think he would play the vast majority of games, and they're playing for 100. Maybe that's brave of me, but that's my out route potentially, Mark, that you've said there is in a few weeks when we see what the lay of the land is. Maybe I go, Havertz isn't working for whatever reason, then I'll just go to Grealish. The same with Mahrez. Mahrez is 9 million. Once Grealish is in and he's playing, I think his minutes will be more secure, and I can just drop down to Grealish. I mean, that's kind of my thinking at the moment on those guys.
All right, interesting. Let's look at forwards to round off on. I don't think there's too much here, though. These, again, is the players with less than 15% ownership, minutes per point. Iheanacho, the player we talked about earlier, right up there, 13.2 minutes per point last season. Only owned by 13.1, relatively low. And Abraham there, 14.9. Clearly, if Abraham gets the move and gets starts, he's going to break up our template,
do you know who he'd be perfect for?
Go on.
Chelsea.
Yeah, well, it's kind of
like exactly what they need, right?
The only thing I'll say there is, will he be able to achieve those numbers at a lesser club? Because he has been at some good clubs. He probably will, but you have to think that maybe, if he's playing for a lesser side, that he wouldn't be able to generate quite that amount of, good underlying data. Will he get the amount of opportunities that he's presented at a top club? Maybe not. I do like him, don't get me wrong. If he's 6.5 million, he's a starting striker. He's suddenly straight in the fold, isn't he? He's in the mix of that 100%. But yeah, just something to think about maybe.
What do we think about Wilson? 4.9% owned at the moment.
Wilson!
I mean, is it just
like it.
Injury prone?
I really like it. I really like it.
I did, but I've gone off it.
I mean, he's about 22% of the Twitter teams have got him. So he's, like I said earlier, he's not massively like a differential in terms of the Twitter template. He's on this though. What's his ownership here? About 5% overall.
Yeah, 5%. Yeah,
in the game.
4-9.
I really like him just because you talk about teams like Chelsea. Oh, they won't get many goals, but Havertz will be the one that gets them. Or Tottenham won't get any goals, but Son will get them if they do. Well, Wilson is Newcastle's goals. Like he's
but
he's
Chelsea
just that
can win any
talisman.
game they turn up to, and Newcastle could easily lose 10 in a row.
Wilson can get a penalty in the 90th minute in a game where they should have lost about 8-0. That's what he does.
But I just feel like
does.
That's what he does. Newcastle rock up to a fixture and you just don't know what you're going to get 100% from it, and that's like the strength of the team. Like for me, he's quite comparable to Antonio in the terms of, they're both injury prone, they're both the same price, they both could do pretty damn well for their team when they're on the pitch. But I'd back West Ham to have just generally be able to be in more games than Newcastle. I mean, Newcastle rock up against some of the better teams. I don't give them a hope in hell, to be honest. I know that under the the new coach that they've got, they seem to be a better outlet. I think that they're trying to make things happen, but I just think there's better options than Wilson.
But is the counter argument to that not Ivan Toney? Like everyone's going for Ivan Toney, and everyone's going for
Toney to Wilson by a long stretch.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. I mean, the reason why I think Brentford will be more enterprising than Newcastle. It depends if Saint-Maximin stays fit. Right? If Saint-Maximin's fit, Newcastle's a completely different team. I don't see him staying fit.
Wilson will outscore Toney this season.
He won't even play for most of the season.
I don't think he will.
That's a brave.
I'm backing Toney, so I've got to say I don't think he will. I think Toney will get between 15 and 20 goals.
Come at the end of the season, take that.
He's also 1 million more.
Yeah.
The fixtures are okay. I mean, he's fine if he's playing. I wouldn't.
But he's a
tell anyone
Premier League player, and Tony's never
yeah, but Wilson won't get 38 games. He will miss 10 games at least. I would say. Toney won't. I don't think. That's the difference. That will make the difference.
I think Wilson's injured now, isn't he?
He is. He is.
I want Antonio in my team, and do I want to put Antonio and Wilson?
Well, this is it. I had those two. And I was looking at that going, what am I doing here? I can't take
just
both.
Need to put Ings in as well to complete the hat-trick.
That is very true.
Ridiculous players that could do well if they could stay fit, but it's just.
What do we think about Jimenez? Quality player, but that injury, and he's wearing the headband, and he's playing for Wolves. They've got good fixtures, but we don't know what we're going to get with him. I guess he's the ultimate wait and see, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's looking good. The medical professionals wouldn't let him play again if it. I know.
No, but it's mentally, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, people say Petr Cech was never the same, and you can kind of point to that maybe after one that happened to him. The signs look good. I suppose it's just wait and see. For me, it will be the fact that the new manager seems to just be so attacking that he might get more opportunities now. So even if he's not quite the same player, he'll have more opportunity to actually score. And the fixture run is, again, that good. And I do like fixtures. So I'd probably be willing to take the chance. Obviously, I'll look at the first 3 weeks and see if they're, tragic or not. But yeah, from game week 4 onwards, I don't hate it at all.
No, I think it'd be good if he does become the player he was again for us, because that will be another 7-5 option, which is good, because at the moment I'm not considering him yet, but I want him to come alive as an option. I think that'd be great, but I don't think he's in the initial reckoning.
Zero teams.
Zero teams in your Twitter sample.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, not surprising. I guess the same is for Richarlison and Aubameyang. Did you see any of those?
Richarlison's in a fair few.
Right, okay.
Richarlison is in a fair few.
At the Olympics, isn't he? Or have I got that
wrong? At the Olympics. I can't understand it, but I think he was in about 5 or 6 different teams. That's all.
Yeah, but I mean,
your followers
compared to the midfield, I just don't see the same level of promise there as we saw in midfield. So for me, that's why I'm going to go with the 5 in midfield, to give myself the option to react to some of the bandwagons that I think will kick off. Whereas, Danny Ings could fire, I suppose, early on. I mean, if he does, then he's got to be worth 8 million, but his future's still in question. If Spurs do sell Kane, surely it's Ings they look for, don't you think?
Well, sure, just most obvious thing ever, and I think he'd then probably be in a lot of our teams thinking, because he's that good, isn't he? Again, he's another player who's every goal comes with a bonus.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, should we look at our teams then? Should we round off by doing that? We'll start with Luke, as he's the guest.
Whoa!
Well, I can't even remember what team it is. It changes so often.
Well, it's on screen now.
It's your team reveal, Luke. So it's your final.
Not team reveal. It's draft. Oh, yeah. Not say team reveal. Although it's August, we're not allowed to say team reveal.
I was going to count the template players. 1, 2, 3.
Loads of them in there.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
How much is this going to change, Luke?
15,
how
Luke.
much is this going to change, Luke, before Friday week?
I mean, we've still got so much information to come, haven't we? So I'll keep that as my back pocket as to why it's going to change. But yeah, I mean,
the hell is that? Liver Montebello.
Oh, he's the new Southampton fullback from Chelsea.
he's just a random 4 that might get some game time.
Oh, cool.
I mean, none of them are really, are they? Yeah, my only real considerations
Sorry,
at the
Luke,
moment...
could you just run through the team for the podcast?
Oh, of course, yeah, sorry. So I've got Foster and Backman in goal. That's been Sanchez at various points as well, but I explained earlier that I just think he'll probably get more saves. I've got Veltman, Digne, Alexander-Arnold, Shaw, Liveramento, I don't even know how to say that, at the back. Brownhill, Havertz, Rafinha, Salah, Mahrez in midfield, Watkins, Toney and Antonio up front. It's got 2 million in the bank, sorry. So my only real considerations were, do I go Greenwood instead of Watkins and play 5 in midfield? I just prefer Brownhill as a sub than I do any of the 4.5 strikers. So that's kind of why I'm on that at the moment, and Watkins' games are good enough. And then obviously Greenwood is probably a transfer later waiting to happen, whereas Watkins, he could be because of the fixtures, but there's a clear route to Jimenez there, whereas Greenwood, I just might not know when he just doesn't play right, whereas Watkins, it is my choice rather than he just doesn't turn up for a game. I'll probably go to Son after game week 1, so Havertz will go to Son, and I'll still have some money left in the bank, 0.5. I've got plans later to get Mane. It's never going to work, but Mahrez will go to Mane at some point. And in defence, the only other thing I really thought of is I'm not sure about Digne. What I can do is I can actually have 4.5 million defenders. So Veltman's already one, and then I could change him to White, and I could change Livramento to Fofana, and then that actually generates me another 0.5, which I don't even know where I'd spend it, but I've got that in the back pocket for any price changes. And then I can rotate those 3, because in the first 6 weeks, I'm wildcarding in game week 7 almost certainly. I want to plan my team that way.
Are you booking that in, Luke? Are you planning
much,
for that? Yeah.
I mean, this is a Sky game tactic, I think. I mean, we're kind of used to this. I've decided that's when I'm going to do it, and I'm kind of going to stick to it. I mean, even if I'm doing really good, I've done it in the past where I've wildcarded from... I mean, I wildcarded when I was 20k, not last season or the season before. I'm happy to do so. I just think it's much better used in the early stages, personally. I could actually have that Digne slot rotated between White, Fofana and Veltman, and their fixture run, if you look at it, is actually really good for 6 weeks. You get some really good games out of that, and they're also cheap. All of those players could go up in price, so I may just do that rather than have Digne. And that's really my only considerations at the moment. I haven't really looked at too much else at this point. That's where I've come to. The only other slight thing is maybe I just get Mane from the start and don't mess around with these Havertz and Mahrez's. That is in my back mind, but I like Mahrez too much, I think, and I really like Havertz game week 1. So yeah, I mean, this is where I am.
It's like you copied me, Luke, or I copied you, because my team.
I think we're
similar
always
tactics.
Very similar at the beginning of the season, Mark. I have noticed this, and I felt like I'm ganging up on us today.
It's been the Mark and Luke versus Az show tonight.
It's going to be that. It's going to be that when I show my team.
We haven't conferred, by the way. I want to
say
we
haven't. I only got
Luke.
I got Luke's team late today, didn't I? It was the last one I got out of you and Az, and I'd already sent some drafts on WhatsApp. I have changed it. We'll see in a minute, but yeah, I mean, I like what you're doing with the Havertz and Mahrez thing, because I'm thinking the same way, and then I'm thinking Son in for game week 3, and I've saved the money to have that flexibility in midfield, which that's what I mean about if I went Bruno, I'd just stick with Bruno and Salah, and then all I'm doing is swapping my 6.5s about.
Yeah, which I don't really fancy.
Doesn't really make me excited, because I don't think you can have the same impact swapping 6.5s about.
No, I mean, I've got my plan. I can read it out. Havertz to Son goes for game week 2, so I get a captain later on and good fixture as well versus Wolves. Then I'll hopefully save in game week 3. I mean, this is never going to happen, is it? But hopefully save in game week 3. Watkins to Jimenez, Mahrez to Pepe for game week 4. So Mahrez, I think, maybe dropped out of the team by then, and Pepe will be playing Norwich. Got a good little fixture run straight after the first 3 terrible ones. And then Son goes to Mane in game week 5, so I get the double up. And in game week 6, I've just left it blank, so I didn't want to plan any further. But
this is it, right? I have never planned like that, and I'm doing it this season for the very first time. Believe it or not, I've never done it. Never used a transfer planner. Only the end of last season, you might have noticed as I've got Excel up now and again. Only then did I do it, right? And I'm doing it for the first time this season, and it's made me think, in a similar way to you, Luke, right? Or
That's
often
dangerous.
we do anyway. I know, and this is what I mean. Now,
I warn you now, it's dangerous. This is what you have to do in Sky, and this is why I always do
of course.
it.
And we don't like booking out transfers, going, right, this is what I'm doing in game week 2, then I'll do this in 3, then I'll do this in 4, because we all know it all goes out the window straight away, doesn't it? When like, Luke Shaw's injured first game, and then you've got to do something.
Exactly, but I feel like when you're saying I'm definitely going to wildcard at this point, and this season we're presented with so many good bench options, like the 4.5 million defenders and stuff to fall back on. We've already mentioned that you can maybe do it a little bit, and just if it goes Pete Tong, you've obviously can just wildcard, but also if your player doesn't turn up, you've got a pretty good player coming in. You haven't got a complete, duffer most of the time.
No,
so
you've got... Yeah, go on, Can you say it's lots of rubbish we're talking about?
No.
Okay.
I took what you said last season, and thought, okay, maybe I do need to start using a spreadsheet. So I went out and I found the guys that did the Champman stuff, James and Rob, and they've built a transfer plan for Fantasy Scout, which will be available for members of Scout on Friday. So if you're interested in that, head to the members area on Friday. You can fill out a form and you'll get one sent to you. It's so good. I love it. I just think it is important to have a plan. I do wonder about how realistic it is, but I think having a basic kind of a plan to follow that you can, because it also helps you with just things like, knowing how much money you've got in the bank, who your captains are going to be, what your subs are going to look like.
Well, it also kind of fact checks you as well, right? Because I know we do have to react to form and what goes on, but it's not. I think it's nice to have an idea of this is what I would have done, and if I don't do that, I suddenly go, I want to get this player. Am I just reacting to the fact that he scored 2 goals in 2 weeks? I mean, that's probably not the way to play the game. I want to look at good players historically for good fixtures and forget the fact he scored last week. That's the idea. The problem is in this game it comes with price rises, which I hate, which means then you get punished in that way. But there we go.
All right, do you want to look at my team then, and then we'll get on to yours at the end, which is kind of like the anti-team compared to myself and Luke, because I've done exactly the same.
Luke's got 9 template players, the same as
I know. Well, let's see how many I've got. I haven't counted how many. This isn't going to be my team on final day, but this is what I'm currently looking at. So Sanchez in goal, back 4, Trent, Chilwell, Dina, Shaw, Jota, Mahrez, Salah, Havertz, Tony and Antonio. So at the moment it's a back 4, but I have had a team with the 5 in there as well earlier today, which I did send you earlier. But yeah, that's what I'm going with. Soufal, Brownhill, Obafemi, the subs right now. But everything's going to change depending on what the market does. But I like the Mahrez Havertz thing as well. I've got 1.5 in the bank. So the move will be either Mahrez or Havertz to Son game week 2. I know that, Luke, you've booked out it's Havertz. What would you do, though, if Havertz got a couple of goals against Palace? Would you still get rid?
I'd probably still do it because I'd want to keep to the plan. I think. I'm pretty sure I would, just because if I've made the plan, I almost want to see it through, and that's why it's dangerous, right? Sometimes you can remove a player who's performing. I guess I just have to judge it at that time, but I wouldn't have thought he'll score 2 goals in the next game, so I'd probably
and the thing is, Mahrez has got Norwich, but the only thing is, if I feel that Mahrez won't start that game for one reason or another, it might be him going.
That's why I've got so much in the bank. I've got 2 million. Like I say, I could even generate that extra 0.5 and have 2.5 million in the bank. I just think the prices are ridiculous this season. You can afford such good teams that you can almost allow yourself a little bit of flexibility, which we could just be all being stupid and just have Bruno Fernandes and just sit there with our template team.
I look at this and I've got too many risks. I've got Jota, Mahrez and Havertz, so one of those is going to go. I've just put this in because I had the Robertson team. I think I had Robertson and Robertson, and who was the 5th midfielder? I think I had... Who did I have in there in the 8? I can't remember who I had instead of Jota, but I just preferred this team when I looked at it, but it'll probably change again tomorrow. I mean, I'm changing this, 2 or 3 times a day at the moment? I don't know about anybody else. But you hated the last one. You've hated every version of my team without Bruno, you've hated. So the only way I'm going to get you to say you don't hate it is by putting Bruno back in and sticking with the 6-5s. It just
reaffirms to me that you're not getting enough out of not having Bruno to justify it. I mean, you've got 7 out of 15 template players. I mean, that's fine. You've got Brownhill. I mean, you talk about being able to swap round for midfielders and react quickly to midfielders, and you've got bloody Brownhill on your bench. I can't believe you're.
Yeah, but I can go to what I want to do is maybe do what Luke's doing and get 2 million on the bench, so you can go from a 4-5 to a 6-5. So I probably won't go Chilwell. I'll probably go with a 5-5 defender in there, because I think the 2 million is the good option, because that means you can go Obafemi to a 6-5 or Brownhill to a 6-5 or So the 2 million gives you a nice bit of flexibility. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean,
it looks weak to me. It looks a weak team to me. But that's my.
Well,
opinion,
it looks weak if you're looking at the season, but for game week 1 and 2, Jota at Norwich, Havertz at home to Palace, Mahrez, Norwich at home second game week. It's not weak if you just took the first 2 games. If you look at the first 2 games, you think these will play 90 minutes. It's a strong team, but it's the 90 minutes that's in question.
I think there's a chance Mahrez does play the vast majority of games, by the way. I know we're all just saying, Mahrez might just drop out in his Pep roulette, but he was clearly the favoured choice in the last 10 games of the season, and there's every chance that Mahrez, if you just left him in the whole season, he's shown it before, would actually be a decent pick. And I feel like Havertz is the same. It's only Jota out of that team that I think is like a big risk, to be honest with you. I probably would, that's probably a risk too far. I just feel like Firmino, when he's back, will probably play. But yeah, again, you could probably chance it game week 1 if he's not in training. Outside that, I don't think there's any risks in that team particularly. I think Mahrez is just the obvious one that could be. I mean, there's also I know people don't like it, but Pookie at 6 million for me is like a get out of jail card in a few weeks. If you want to generate some money somewhere, maybe Antonio's got injured, Watkins' fixtures go bag, Tony's just dreadful.
He's the Tony way out. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, he can be any of them, I think.
But Rodrigo could be as well.
And Rodrigo, yeah. I think that he's got a nice fixture run, and the bottom line is if you're that cheap, and you said about you're surprised about people having Tony and 6.5 million. I mean, people have worked it out. If you've got really cheap strikers that are starting and they're on penalties, you've always got a chance to be value, and you want to put all your money in midfield, right? So this is what we're doing, and in the attacking fullbacks. Yeah. We all have that same information. Everyone's team looks the same. Everyone's got attacking fullbacks from the top team. Everyone's got all their money in midfield with the big hitters, and they've got cheap strikers. We're all on this same wave because it's just the way that it's played now, I think.
Yeah, so I'll probably end up with a 3-5-2 is probably what I'll go with. I won't go with Chilwell. I'll put Dunk back in and go with 5 in midfield is probably what I'll do. And I won't risk Jota. But I just wanted to throw this up there and see what you thought of it. I mean, basically, has any team with Tony in and not Bruno, you're going to say you hate, aren't you? Because you don't like
Tony. I've got Tony. He's just on my bench.
Right. Yeah. Why? So, what do you see yourself not starting Tony on a regular basis?
Well, do you want to get my?
Yeah, let's bring it up. Tony. We'll call him Tony.
It's Tony, isn't it?
Tone. So, looking at that, so Smith Rowe's going to be normally your bench player, right? You want to go through it?
Yeah. So Sanchez and Foster in goal. Template. Trent, Cancelo, Soufal, Salah, Fernandes, Buendia, Rafinha, Smith Rowe, Watkins, Antonio, and then Tony on the bench for Fana, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce the Norwich 4 million defender's name.
Omobamidele.
I'll go for Luke's one. So
Omobamidele. There we go. He's straight in there. Well done, Luke.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Smith Rowe is a bit of a. There's still these signs going for Maddison, but. I don't know. I still think Smith Rowe will get that first game. And I think people are going hard on Brentford and really thinking Brentford are going to roll over Arsenal. But I think Arsenal can win that game fairly comfortably.
I don't know if anyone thinks that.
Well, everyone's going for Tony and no one's considering any Arsenal.
I think he's got a goal of them in that Arsenal game. I mean, Arsenal don't look organised at the back yet, and they've lost Thomas Partey, right? So there's going to be a goal in it for Brentford, I think. That's all I think. But
well, there could be. I mean, what I've done here is I'm backing Arsenal to win that with Smith Rowe at 10. I could play Tony over him. If I go for Tony, there's no point in having Smith Rowe really, because I'm going to bench Smith Rowe for the next 2. But I wanted to have a bench option, like a decent bench option, rather than a Brownhill, because I just always need them.
Oh, I hate Brownhill. I know what you're saying. Yeah.
Every year
I think Brownhill's going to be all right. I think he's actually going to be an all right midfield
He might
option.
be, but like if you're putting Brownhill in your starting 11 because you're wanting to make other transfers.
No, you don't put him in your starting 11.
Yeah, but you might have to. This is the
in,
point. Like it was like Vinagre. If I'd had a decent bench option and not Vinagre, I probably wouldn't have had to take a -4. My season could have been. He ruined my season. That bloke. Yeah, but yeah. So I'm going for. I've got Buendia in. I didn't have Buendia in, but I just think those three fixtures for Villa are just so good. And Rafinha, I'm really surprised. You didn't have Rafinha, did you, Luke?
No, I didn't have. He's starting him. I don't have him. He's been in my teams, and I just don't want to start him at United. Because again, it's Bielsa changed Leeds completely at the tail end of the season, didn't he? They became a much more pragmatic team. So I don't think we're going to see an open game in that first one. So I just don't know. I
don't want to piss around with a 6.5 million midfielders.
I felt like I was taking him out just to sort of go against what everyone else is doing. And the more
he
stats
just stays
you read,
in all season for me.
The more stats you read about him is everything. Is just so his potential is.
Oh yeah, I mean he'll come in and out of my teams between now and Friday. Yeah, and it may well be in the last one I do. Yeah. So I see it. I think I don't dislike this team at all. I don't like Fofana. I just don't want Fofana. I just don't want it because I want even my fifth defender to give me some bit of excitement. You know what I mean?
He covers Soufal quite well. That's the thing, because obviously I play Cancelo and Trent every week,
right?
And then it was just about trying to find the best defender that can kind of rotate. So that's where the planner helps, because you can see what the fixtures are and stuff.
I think
you got home to Wolves, away to Norwich, and home to Burnley are 3 games in his opening 6 weeks where you could. I mean, home to Burnley could easily see a clean sheet there, right? Yeah. Away to Norwich, quite possibly, and home to Wolves, we just don't know what we're going to get. So I think 3 of the games at least. I mean, I don't mind 4-5 for a non-attacking defender playing for a good side, and Leicester start well as well historically. So it's another season where they've been disappointed, but I'm kind of backing them to start the season strongly. I mean, the one player I don't think we've really mentioned is Barnes. Barnes is someone that really interests me because he was unbelievable to that injury. I wonder how that's affected him, but he's playing again now. He's back in pre-season, and I think he might have scored, or he had a good game.
No, he came on at QPR. Okay, 45 minutes. I mean, again, I love him, and if I could be certain, if I could be certain he starts, then I would get Barnes in. And he's a player I'm going to
Maddison now, unfortunately, because I think this transfer thing with Maddison just isn't going away, and I just would worry. I started with Maddison, and then Arsenal did stump up 70 million for him, and he went. So, yeah, I think it probably is Barnes that I'd go for.
Right,
Maddison would be nowhere near my team, but Barnes definitely. I mean, Patson Daka's really interesting, but we're just going to have to wait, I think, unfortunately. But I think he could have a say in the season at some point. He looks like a real handy player.
So what are you going to be doing with early transfers? Have you looked at a planner and thought about that?
Yeah, well, I haven't really factored in the early transfers because I kind of feel like this team could carry me through quite nicely, and I disagree with you that's a negative.
That's what we were saying. Well,
yeah. I'm quite happy to be able to react to things.
Well, I can tell you where at least one of the transfers is going on an Aston Villa player after the first 3 weeks. So you've already booked in one there, probably Buendia, right? But maybe
probably Buendia.
It could be Watkins. So that's already messing around a transfer at a low budget, which I'm not. I mean, I think going to Sarr after 3 weeks,
given the fixtures they've got for 3 weeks, I don't.
Yeah, no, I can. You could just take your rewards and run, but. Outside that, again, I just look at that team. I'm not sure outside maybe Cancelo, maybe his minutes are bad and you go to Chilwell at some point. I'm not sure where you would even make any transfers, and that's what I loved it as like dead team picks.
But why is that a problem?
Sure.
They've got good.
Because you have them and you have
for the first 3 games.
It's a problem because maybe what I'm looking at is planning those transfers, then trying to build a team with those transfers in mind that gives me a bit of an edge over the first couple of weeks. That's all I'm saying. And rather than go,
but we never do that. Like we've never done that before. You don't plan a wild card and then plan to do 3 moves over the next 3. You plan your wild card. You plan to save a transfer and then react after that. So I don't really understand what the difference is, especially at the start of the season when everything is completely in flux. We don't know who's going to be in form, who's going to do well, which teams are going to perform well. I don't want to back in transfers at this completely volatile start of the season. I'd rather play it safe.
All I'm saying is I'm trying to think about my team in the short term and not go, Buendia, he's a class player, Rafinha, he's a class player. Because the danger is you'll look at all your team and go, well, they're season keepers. And then when it gets to game week 3 and 4 and you've got transfers, you go, what am I going to do? Whereas I prefer to go, right, I'm going to get a player in short term like a Mahrez or a Jota.
But Buendia's got the best 3 fixtures.
I'm not. All right. Bad example.
Rafinha's a better example, but the stats are so good for 6-5 that I think it doesn't matter about the fixtures. I can't see a better 6-5 option than Rafinha, given what I think he is capable of doing.
He's too cheap. He's too cheap.
I agree with you, but that's because you're limited to a 6-5 player there. Whereas if you don't have Bruno, I'm not. I've got Havertz there. So Havertz is my short-term player. And Havertz probably has got the potential to outscore Rafinha in the first 2 games, right? And that's what I'm banking on. Now, I could be completely wrong.
I think Bruno will comfortably outscore Havertz over the first 3 matches anyway.
Yeah, he could. I don't doubt that, right? And that's the risk I'm taking.
I know what you're saying.
Right?
I think there is. I just don't think this team hasn't been set up for a season. This team has still been set up for a 4 or 5, 6 weeks. Just because I haven't got transfers booked in doesn't mean I still don't think these players are going to do well over that period. But I do get what you're saying, but yeah, Fernandes for me is I just want to have the 2 captains options, because if Salah doesn't start the season amazingly well and Fernandes does, game week 3 rolls around or 4, then I've got Fernandes to go for. But you never know with Liverpool, right? We saw from them last season things we'd never seen from before. under Klopp. Really frayed at the back, struggling to score goals. Less penalties for Salah. Never know. It's just nice to have another option.
Yeah,
another premium option.
I think you're right. I've always played the game the way you're describing it now. I've never looked at my team and planned the first 4 or 5 game weeks and looked at, okay, I'm going to make this move in game week 3, so therefore I'm going to select this player now for short term, and then never done it before. So it's almost like an experiment for me to try something different because, well, it's a bit of fun, right? I mean, I'm doing it for that. Right? So going without Bruno and giving myself a bit more flexibility to do that is probably what I'm going to do. I'm not saying going with Bruno's a bad idea. Of course it isn't, right? And I'm probably the odds are stacked against me. But I just like the scenario that I'm building, right? Which I know, obviously, Raptor again is rolling his eyes at what I've just said. But I mean, Luke's thinking the same thing, right?
I'm not here to say this team is better than your teams because I know how you're selecting players for a reason. They could all do well and all of that. It's just I just think I think Lundstrom or someone like Mitchell are just perfect examples of players that I've not been able to get because I always had other things to do. And often those other things to do were things like me bringing in Martial, for Ings completely unnecessarily. But I had it planned, so I had to see it out because I had it planned. Whereas not having that plan lets you react. And there's been, there could be a 4 million option or 4 or 5 million option that emerges straight away that maybe I'm better placed to grab. But
maybe if you just took hits, then it would have been right.
I mean, or you can take hits. But again, I've found in the past that taking hits early has set me back way far back.
I do agree, but I think in those examples like there, we were doing that because, and we did it with Pulisic, me and Mark, and you did it with Martial. We're basically bringing people in who we're not even sure were fit to start the season. If anything, we're doing it the other way around. I'm going for the people that I think are going to start the season because they're in pre-season and they're training. Other people doubt their minutes a little bit as a result, but everything's pointing towards them starting. And then I'm going to revert to my season-long team, which will probably not look too dissimilar to what I see in front of me from as here. But I'm with Mark. I think in the first few weeks I want to use those transfers, and I think the way the prices have fallen, it allows you to do that because you've just got these really good options to fall back on. I'm not falling back on just rubbish players most of the time. I'm falling back on some decent ones. I feel like anyway.
Brownhill.
I think
he's going to be a hero. Okay. You watch.
He's not going to. He hopefully won't touch my team unless Mahrez doesn't play at all.
Of course, he's going to be a hero. I tell you, I can see.
He'll do a Matt Loughton.
Nori and Brownhill.
Who was the Burnley midfielder who absolutely smashed it every time we needed him that one season? I never had him. There was a Burnley midfielder who came in and scored.
Or?
No, it wasn't
Westwood,
him.
Was he there?
No, it wasn't him. It was before that.
Boyd. Do you mean Boyd? George Boyd.
It might have been Boyd.
It was Boyd. It was Boyd. It was a 4-5. It was a 4-5.
Only scored.
He came in like 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Every time we needed him.
And then Forest tried to sign him, and he failed the eye test famously. What a load of rubbish that was. Brilliant. Okay, brilliant start. I think we've done over 2 hours. I mean, it was. I mean, there's so much still to be decided, so much still to discuss, and we're going to do at least one show next week where we look at our teams, which are going to be close to final. I think we've decided that we're going to do Wednesdays, 7 o'clock, right, from now on, as for the season.
Yes, but I need to talk to you about next week. Next week's a bit tricky.
Won't be next week then. Okay, well, we'll see. We'll let you know on Twitter, of all places, what we're going to do next week. Just before we end, I just want to say Gaffer starts this weekend, right? Yep. I'm playing Gaffer this season. If you don't know what Gaffer is, it is the Championship fantasy football run by the guys that do Champ Man. It looks brilliant. I didn't play it last year. Did you play last year, Baz?
I didn't, but I'm playing it this year.
Yeah. So I've picked my team for that. I've probably got some tinkering to do. We have got a Black Box League. If you join Gaffer, look up the Black Box League. You just got to use FPL BlackBox to join the league. There's no need to use a code because they've given us a nice manual shortened code. FPL BlackBox is the league to join. So come and join us. We'll be playing that this season. We'll probably be mentioning it now and again on the stream as well, and certainly on Twitter. So back that. The other thing to say is, Az and I will both be at Fest on the 13th, which is deadline day. That's going to be interesting because obviously a match is going to be going on. We're going to be owning players in that match, maybe a 2 or 3, and we'll be at Fest on that. And there's tickets still available for that. That's in London and Waterloo.
Luke?
Is Luke going? I don't know if Luke's going.
No, I'm on holiday.
Well, there's going to be a lot of people there, a lot of names there, and a good chance to mix while the season starts. It's going to be pretty hectic those last few hours before deadline. Anything else you wanted to mention before we sign off, Az?
Apprentice.
Of
if you haven't
course.
checked out the Apprentice video yet, check that out. We've got our 2 apprentices. They're brilliant, Henry and Natalie. Natalie's on Twitter now, so you can say hello to her and rate her first draft, which is great. And we should be getting another video out this week, right, Mark, on tools and strategies and tips with Nat. So look out for that on the channel as well.
Absolutely. And my apprentice Henry will be doing a team reveal video next week with both of them to look at their final teams before the deadline. So we'll see what they're picked. I'm worried actually looking at Henry's initial how that compares to Natalie. I think
I know. I was quite happy.
Already I think Natalie's doing very well, so I'm slightly worried. But we'll see. Long way to go with that. So thanks, Luke, for coming on. Always top value, especially when we're talking about differentials. I think you have influenced me. And I'm a little worried that I'm going down the wrong way here. Well, I didn't expect it. When I saw your team, it was very similar to what I was thinking. So I don't know how much to attribute to the fact that I'm being influenced by your spirit, if you like. But certainly we've got similar ideas about the opening game weeks. Well, see how that goes. But thanks for coming on. We'll have you again in the season as we roll on to see how successful it is.
Pleasure. Thank you very much. Yeah, enjoyed it.
All right. It's a good night for me then.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.